Chapter 1.
Yes, Dr. Hart. Olivia Leggett stood tall and at attention. At least, as tall as she could. Barely breaking 5 feet without cheating didn't help much when you wanted to be taken seriously. At least she had no problem with the at attention part of it. You know, of course, that we have the weekend clinic as well. It's part of the county hospital community outreach program. We are very proud of the work we do at the clinic. I expect you would like to be involved? Olivia tried to look like she wanted to be involved. Yes, Dr. Hart, very much. Good. You come with good grades and quite highly recommended, Leggett. But that doesn't mean much more than that I have high expectations of you now. It's up to you to live up to them. Now, a few ground rules. I do not want exhausted doctors making mistakes. I also do not want excuses when you have to pull your weight. That might seem like a contradiction, but you will soon find out that it's not. School might be difficult, Leggett, but this is where the real test starts. Now, your recommendation letters make it clear that you've been aiming for gynecology. Yes, Dr. Hart. Good. But you will soon find that it's the specialization that chooses you, not the other way round. Like wands. Olivia closed her eyes and waited for the freshly mopped floor of the break room where Dr. Dana Hart, one of the best gynecologists in the country, was giving her a pep talk. Or warning, depending on how you looked at it. I'm afraid there's no Ollivander here to assure you that there is a wand for everyone, Leggett, said Dr. Hart without missing a beat. So you will have to work hard and show that you deserve it. Yes, Dr. Hart. Good. Well, you do not get to choose gynecology immediately. You will be rotated through all departments, just like all the other new residents. You have a lot of catching up to do. 3 days is a long time in a hospital. Yes, Dr. Hart. I'm sorry I missed the 3 days. Well, they're gone now. So get started making up for it. Yes, Dr. Hart. I believe you're in pediatrics in 5 minutes, Leggett? Yes, Dr. Hart. Well? Olivia could have kicked herself. Yes, I'm heading there right now. You're already late, then. Dr. Hart left, a statuesque woman who was everything Olivia wished she was, right down to the way she styled her natural hair. Olivia wanted to impress her, no matter what it took. It didn't feel like she'd gotten off to a good start there, but she hadn't done anything spectacularly and memorably stupid, so she could make up for that, too. Olivia walked quickly, much faster than anybody would have expected given that of her short stature and admittedly a few extra pounds, determined to do her best. No, better than that, she was determined to be the best at her chosen field, and if her own best was not good enough for that, then she would just have to get better. There was no special talk with the attending pediatrician. There was no time for introductions either. Dr. Jessica Martins was in full flow and was apparently not the kind who bothered with interruptions just because a resident was around. Olivia listened, and was up to speed quickly. She was happy enough to stay in the background and take in the people around her. Pediatrics was not where she wanted to shine. That was one of the departments where she just hoped to get a reputation for being competent. Competent was good enough for that. Yes, drive Southworth, do you disagree with me? Olivia blinked and took in the man who did go ahead and disagree with the attending pediatrician. Stupid or brave? Probably both. Definitely not sensible, and a doctor had to be sensible. He was cute, though, a redhead with blue eyes, tall, grace in the way he moved. He would be popular with the ladies. Not that that was any of her business. She wasn't there to date. She had no time for dating. She had things to do with her life and none of those things involved men. Olivia frowned as she watched the handsome drive Southworth charm Dr. Martins into considering that she might, in fact, be wrong. How was he doing that? Specialists never listened to residents, and they definitely never considered things like how they might perhaps be wrong about a few things. By the time he'd brought Dr. Martins around to his own point of view, and convinced her that it had been her own idea, Olivia was in awe. Damn! The pretty boy was good. With those skills, he should be a snake oil salesman, not a doctor. Hey! I'm Ellie McIntosh. You're Olivia Leggett, right? They've put us together in the accommodations, isn't that great? I'm obstetrics, by the way. Olivia grinned. Ellie McIntosh was not what she'd expected. She looked like she could break a man's arm without breaking a sweat, and she would not have looked out of place at a biker's bar, but it would have to be a bar for very cheerful bikers. Sorry, I couldn't make it here till now. I hate having missed 3 days. Oh, don't worry about that. I'll catch you up and show you around and make sure that you get to know everybody. Just follow my lead for today. Olivia smiled and nodded gratefully, glad to tag along as they did the rounds. So, Jason Southworth, Ellie McIntosh, that meant that the third person there was Angela Cullen, who would specialize in psychiatry. Of course, all of them still had to do their general clinics and OP, and they would have to assist everybody when necessary, but it probably meant that she wouldn't see much of Angela. Maybe that was a good thing. Angela looked like a baby angel doll, all pale blonde hair, perfect makeup, big blue eyes, and perfectly ironed and starched scrubs. She was just the kind of tiny fairy-like perfection that made Olivia feel as if she was about to break out in a rash. Angela had the kind of looks that made short look sweet and adorable. Paul is the only one who's missing here. Paul Martinez, he's an emergency, they're short-staffed so he wasn't pulled in for this. Paul? Oh, yes, he was a last-minute addition. He was supposed to do his residency in LA, but there was some glitch, and he was taken in here at the last minute. He's going to be a trauma surgeon. He'll be really good, too, he's great. Olivia nodded noncommittally. She'd make up her own mind for herself. Still, it did seem like a good place, and while it was busy, it wasn't the kind of busy that her other choice, one of the biggest hospitals in NYC, would have been. There was obviously a reason the little beach town was called the Outpost. If it weren't for the excellent OB-GYN and neonatal units at the hospital, it would hardly have been worth the residency. But it was one of the best in the country at that. She was determined to shine. Right, so for the first couple of weeks, you are expected to gopher. I do not want to hear anything about any rivalries, or any showmanship, or any one-upmanship, or any kind of ship, in fact. We are fairly isolated on this island, and it's a small place. We get patients from the mainland, but we all know each other quite well. If there's any friction, it will not be hidden unlike in NYC. We will hear of it, and we will not allow anything that will put our patients or our reputation at risk. Is that clear? The residents nodded. Good. Get to work. The residents nodded again, and they were immediately put to work. Olivia was left to work at the outpatient clinic under the keen eye of the general surgeon, Dr. Homer Benedict. She soon found that the town had its own rhythm and pace. People with chronic conditions came to the outpatient clinic and were treated, and the doctors put the patient's welfare above the fine print, as she discovered when she tried to untangle a woman's arthritis prescriptions. I think. Never mind about that, Olivia. We have a system here. I'm sure you'll catch on quickly enough. Roberta is our administrator and she has her own specialization, not billing patients high enough to get them in debt. You just get the information and pass it on, and Roberta will handle it. Olivia blinked. Oh. Shocked? A little, but pleasantly. Dr. Benedict chuckled. We're in the business of saving lives, Olivia. Or at least, that's what we tell ourselves when we're feeling a little too grand. We're really in the business of making lives as comfortable as possible. How can we heal the body when the mind is worried about keeping body and soul together? Don't worry about it. Olivia grinned at Dr. Benedict, deciding that she was going to like this place after all. I won't. Good. Well then, there are 4 patients left out there. They're yours. Mine? Why not? You can handle them, can't you? Olivia nodded eagerly. Of course she could handle them, and she did, putting on her most charming and comfortable face as she let them talk, listened to their symptoms and their worries, tried to make them as easy in their minds as possible. She hesitated for only a moment before ordering tests for one of them. When Dr. Benedict bestowed a benevolent smile on her, she knew she'd made the right call. Good work, Dr. Leggett. This is your first day? Olivia nodded. Excellent. Well, barring any disasters, you should be able to leave after your shift, go home and freshen up. We're not as busy as most city hospitals, so your shifts won't kill you. But it won't be easy either. Olivia nodded again. I'll do my best. I'm sure that will be enough. Olivia did manage to get through her shift, met the famous Roberta and got her paperwork, and was about ready to leave after 8 hours. She'd been at her new hospital for 8 hours, and she would get to leave. That was astounding. She'd expected far more grueling shifts. Don't get your hopes up. I hear that tourist season starts next week and we're going to be running ragged then. I hear 24-hour shifts are not unheard of. That's dangerous. Olivia turned to him, Jason Southworth, she reminded herself. Up close, he seemed very tall, but then anybody over 5 feet 6 inches seemed like a giant to Olivia. She had her pride and her vanity, but it wasn't suicidal enough to make her wear heels to work. Jason was probably at least a few inches over that. She put him at about, say, 5 feet 10 inches, about 1.5 Subway sandwiches taller than she was. That's what caffeine is for. And if not caffeine. Olivia drew herself up to her full height immediately. Drive Southworth, if you are suggesting that. He laughed, and despite herself, she felt her annoyance and her stiffness recede. I'm not. You haven't had a chance to get to know the place, have you? Did you bring a car? I drove up this morning and came straight in. I got held up and then I missed the ferry, so I didn't get to go to the accommodation and set up at all. Well then, you're in luck. I can show you the way. Olivia frowned. I have directions. You're staying with Ellie, aren't you? You're just 10 minutes away from the hospital if you know the shortcut. I helped Ellie move in. Oh, I see. Well, if it won't take you out of your way. It will, so you can thank me by getting me something cold to drink, and then I'll be on my way home. Unless you feel up to going out for dinner with me? He said that so casually that she almost said yes. He said it the way somebody would ask if you could grab a brew for them while you're already at the fridge. It took her a second to cotton on. Excuse me, but are you asking me out? You knock my faith in my own ways if you can't even tell. I should get better. Yes, I am. Do you have a boyfriend? A partner? Olivia shook her head. Look, thank you, but I'm not looking to get involved with anybody. I'm here to get my residency done and get my specialization started, not to find a guy. Sure, that's a very smart and sensible way to go about it. But since you've already found a guy, and you do have to eat. Olivia shook her head again, more firmly. Thank you, but that's a no. All right, then. No dinner tonight. I'll still show you the shortcut and you can give me one of those nice sparkling juices that Ellie keeps in the fridge. I got here early. You have a really nice place, you and Ellie. Apparently, Roberta the Admirable keeps that cottage on tap for the hospital. I didn't know that, or I might have tried to get it myself. You snooze you lose, I suppose. I guess so. Angela, Paul, and I decided to go for apartments. It's more convenient, the apartments have cleaning services. So you're all living in the same building? Goodness, no. We're all within driving distance, but we're spread out a bit. It's only you and Ellie living together. Oh. Why, don't you get along with roommates? Olivia didn't quite know when she fell into step beside him. She didn't have to trot to keep up. Even with her ways, keeping up with Jason's long legs should have been difficult, but he didn't hurry. In fact, he didn't seem like he hurried anything. Sure I do. When was the last time you had a roommate? Olivia crinkled her nose up at him. 2 years ago, if you must know. I shared an apartment with my friend until she decided to move away. Move away? She's a florist. She's the most amazing florist in the whole world. She got the chance to work with this person who is, I guess, a really great artist, who wanted to do a project with flowers and things that could be made to look like flowers and things that definitely did not look like flowers, and... Well, that sounds like everything now, doesn't it? It makes a lot more sense the way Kara explains it. Anyway, it turned into an apprenticeship and now Kara is a real artist. She has a regular shop and she does all the regular stuff, too, but she also does these shows that are really incredible. Kara Dunn? Olivia blinked up at him again, losing her stride a little. You've heard of her? Of course! She has this one piece of wilting roses cast in bronze, held by a woman, with a doe waiting beside them. She made the whole thing out of flowers before she had it cast in bronze. It's incredible. I remember that one. Somebody bought it, it went on auction, it was the first piece of hers that was auctioned and she was terrified that nobody would want it. But somebody bought it. Whoever bought it is very lucky. Olivia smiled. They are. It's beautiful. It was one of her favorites. Though she tells me that she's become much better so she no longer misses it. I'm pretty sure she does. It was hard for her to let that go. I guess it must have been. It was. Well, this is me. You drive a Jeep? Olivia raised a questioning eyebrow at him. There's no reason why you shouldn't drive a Jeep. The Jeep looks great. Needs a wash, but I'll get to that. Why, don't I look like a Jeep kind of gal? Get in and we'll see. Olivia chuckled as she opened the door and got in, struck a pose, tilting an imaginary hat at him. He grinned, and Olivia noticed that he had a dimple. Just the one, on the left. Why did that suddenly make him a lot more appealing? Well, not appealing enough to make her reconsider her dating decision. There would be no more dating for her, not until she was sure she could handle it. The last 2 years had not been easy. She was not going to make her life any more difficult than it had to be. Follow me, and I will lead you home. She smiled and waited as he got into a spiffy little sports car that looked absolutely impractical. He'd never have been able to fit his luggage into that while moving to the island. Hey! Hey, wait up! Olivia turned around to see Ellie and Angela running to catch up. Angela keeping up with Ellie was a surprise and a sight. Those tiny fairy feet could move very fast. She was like Tinker Bell, and she might as well have had wings. Jason, are you trying to steal Ellie's roommate? Asked Angelo when they caught up. Oh, well. Now that I've been caught, I guess I'll have to try another day. I was going to show her the way, Elle. Well, I go back on shift, so I'm sleeping in the break room. So you can show her the way, said Ellie with a sigh. Oh, you have a long one? I'm on night tonight, confirmed Ellie. Sorry, I can't show you everything, Olivia. I'll be home by 6. When's your next shift? 7, said Olivia with a wry smile. Great, that gives us a whole half an hour to catch up and get you comfortable. Don't drink all my beer, Jason. The two women turned and walked off, and Olivia and Jason drove off. Olivia followed Jason, taking in the sights. She had never lived on an island before. It was going to be her home for a few years, so she might as well get used to it. She could smell the ocean everywhere. Even when she couldn't see it, she could smell it. Population on the island was not much, nothing like a big city. She should look up the census and find out for herself, but anyway, tourism was the main industry there. She would be taking care of plenty of people who weren't actually from the island. It would be part of her job to integrate into the community to some extent. The thing with being a gynecologist, well, one of the many things, was that you needed people to trust you extra. Pregnant people tended to be more questioning of doctors because it wasn't just them on the line. Their protective instincts were very keen and their minds were, unlike most people thought, very sharp. If she wanted to be trusted with the lives and well-being of women shielding their hopes and dreams, she had to become a part of the community. It was something pediatricians faced, too. Jason, she could see, was going to have no trouble with that. He was friendly, outgoing, easygoing, all the things that people who made friends and were trusted easily were supposed to be. She distracted herself by noticing that the island had eclectic architecture. Every so often, there was a house that looked like a wild artist had had their way with it. There were bright splashes of color, patterns that stuck in your mind like burr to your sock, things that looked like graffiti she would have to come by and check out later, but on perfect, pristine cottages with glorious gardens, not the kind of place where unwanted graffiti would stay intact. They twisted and turned, and Olivia wondered if she would remember this shortcut after all. But she could almost hear the ocean now. It wasn't far now, it was almost there. The sea. It had always called to her. She had always loved it. That was one of the reasons why, despite everything, deep in her heart, she'd hoped that the residency in NYC wouldn't work out and she would be able to come to the outpost. Because she had never before lived on an island, and she had a feeling that she had always been meant to live on one. She might not have the chance to do it again for decades. She planned to go where her career took her. But while she was on one, she would enjoy it. She would make the most of the slightly damp, salty feel of the wind, the sandy soil, the bright skies, the plants and trees that didn't grow away from the coast. She would make the most of the next couple of years.
If you want more BWWM romances like this, please my love, be sure to subscribe to the Romancely YouTube channel. I look forward to spending more time with you. Subscribe and let's make it happen. Chapter 2. They stopped in front of a cottage that looked like somebody had taken a witch's cottage and decided to mix the gingerbread and wicked aesthetics. It shouldn't have worked, really, but Olivia needed about 2 milliseconds to decide that she loved it. There was a garden, with just a few flowers beginning to appear, and there was a cobbled path to the door, leading from the garage. It was gorgeous. It was quirky and sweet, and she loved it. In a few weeks, more flowers would bloom. She could see that there would be azaleas and marigolds and petunias and sweet peas, and probably so much more. And it would be beautiful riot. Want me to park for you? What? Oh no. It's so pretty. Well, she's got character. The doors are not automatic, so you'll have to do this every time. I recommend leaving your Jeep outside when the weather is good. The door gets stuck a bit. "Oh, I can probably fix that," commented Olivia, and she walked to the garage door before he could get there, gravel crunching under her feet, and she gave it a mighty tug. Sure, it caught a bit, but she was stronger than she looked. "You know, you're stronger than you look," commented Jason, pointing out the obvious. "And you move like a dancer." "Is that a line? Well, never mind. I move like a dancer because I was a dancer. I quit because I wanted to be a doctor. And, well, because I wanted to stop having to live with disordered eating that was just a beat away from becoming an actual eating disorder." "A dancer? Contemporary dancer?" "Nope, ballet. This door isn't so bad. I can fix that. It's just that one hinge that's coming loose, that's knocking the whole thing off kilter and making it get stuck. I can fix that. Not a problem." "A ballerina? You're a ballerina. You don't have to sound so surprised." Olivia tried to keep the annoyance out of her voice, but she couldn't quite manage it. "I'm not. Well, you have to admit it's not exactly common. A doctor ballerina is practically a Barbie story. Have you ever considered going to tax school? You don't seem to have any of that." Olivia got back in her Jeep, and now that she didn't have such a height disadvantage, she turned her best glare on him. The fact that he looked admittedly sheepish made her feel a little better. "Sorry, I usually have tact by the bucket, but you seem to knock me off kilter. Are you sure you won't have dinner with me? I know this place that has the best chowder." "Do you like chowder?" Boy, did she like chowder. Yes, she definitely liked chowder. "Thank you, Jason, but I'd like to have tonight to myself, to get used to my new home. I'm sure you will have no trouble finding company." "Oh, probably not. Paul will probably cook enough for an army and be disappointed when an army doesn't show up." "Paul, he's the triage emergency resident, right? Barely saw him." "You'll like him. He loves cooking and I'm a terrible cook, so that's handy. I'm a nice walk away from him, so I can drop by any time." "Were you going to ask him to make chowder?" Jason grinned. "Maybe. You're incorrigible, aren't you? Could you go into the house and open the connecting door? It should be easier to get my stuff in that way." Jason walked away, and Olivia drove in, parked her Jeep, and waited. She needed that moment to herself. Jason was something of an experience. He had such a big presence, and he just swept in and made himself welcome and comfortable and at home right in your space. Olivia usually found people like that exhausting, but strangely enough, she didn't mind the thought of having dinner with him. Not that evening, of course, and probably not ever, but if they all had dinner together, she wouldn't mind spending time with him. "This is stuck too." Olivia shook her head. He might be charming, but he was entirely helpless and useless. "Kick it," she ordered. There was a loud thump, another loud thump, a cry, and what sounded like a whimper. "Are you all right? I need a doctor." "What?" "It's a joke, I'm joking. I hurt my big toe kicking the door." "Of course you did. Did you unlock it?" "Yes, it's unlocked." Olivia looked around, found a rod that would work as a crowbar, gave the door a kick for good measure but not using her toe like sensible people, and tugged at it. "It's just stuck. Stand back, all right?" She felt where it was stuck, pushed the thin rod in the crack there, and applied pressure as she tugged and turned the knob. It was gratifying to feel it open. It was more gratifying to see the unabashed admiration on Jason's face. "Wow. Wow, marry me." "What?" "You're Wonder Woman. You must marry me." "Allow me to marry you." Olivia chuckled. "I'm handy, that's all." "Well, come on. I've got stuff to carry." "This I can help with," declared Jason cheerfully, and Olivia was glad to notice that he was strong, at least. Not handy, a bit clueless, but he was definitely strong. He hefted her heavy suitcase as if it was nothing, and didn't turn a hair when he had to lug it up the stairs and to the bedroom. Olivia made herself get all the luggage inside before she looked around and took the inside of the cottage in, because she knew she would have stopped halfway if she had taken a break. The cottage lived up to the promise made outside. It had stone floors on the ground floor and hardwood floors upstairs. For the bedrooms, there were 2 bedrooms and a living area upstairs, and the living area already had a few board games, a lot of books neatly stacked in bookshelves, and a study section where there was a long table and chairs. There were already books spread out there. The bookcase in that section was filled with medical textbooks. It was just the kind of place where you'd want to work on your thesis. It was gorgeous, with a big open window and neat blinds. Drawn, Olivia walked to the window and looked out. The beach. I can see the beach from here. It's hard to get down there. It's pretty much a steep cliff. I suppose you could if you were really determined, but it would probably be pretty dangerous. There must be a path down there. There is, but it's about 20 minutes away, and getting to that little patch of sand you're looking at is difficult. You have to time it right, too. It's low tide now. That's as much as you get to see. Well, the walks along the cliff there must be lovely. Yes, they are. So you like long walks along the ocean. Olivia smiled, letting her guard down without knowing it. Who doesn't? But it's hard to get the time to do it. Definitely hard when you're doing your residency. I guess I'll try to find time. But if I can't, at least I have a window from where I can see it. Is that how you feel about life? Watching is enough if you can't be a part of it. Olivia turned to Jason. Who says that the watcher is not a part of it? Well, thank you for your help, Jason. I can't offer you a brew because Ellie specifically mentioned that you weren't supposed to steal her beer. That's okay. She won't mind as long as I bring a six-pack by this week. Your bedroom window doesn't look out this way. Obviously not. I guess it's a good thing that I can look out towards where people live, too, towards the island. That's what I need to learn. I need to be a part of that. So I won't just be looking out there. You travel pretty light. Olivia shrugged. I don't believe in baggage, I guess. Oh, this kitchen is beautiful. It's lovely. Do you cook too? Because if you cook, you simply have to marry me. You simply have to. Olivia laughed. I bet you asked Ellie to marry you because she stocks the fridge with beer. And, wow, a lot of greens and fruits and veggies and cheese, and are these boiled eggs? That settles it, I'm marrying Ellie. I'll fight you for her. Jason laughed, grabbed a beer, popped the top, and sat down at the kitchen table as if he was quite at home. I am too smart to fight you or Ellie. I watched Ellie arrange the living room, and that old couch? I swear she just lifted it and put it where she wanted it. And you might look like you won't pack much of a punch, but I saw what you did to that garage door. I'm not fighting either of you. Olivia grinned, grabbed a juice and sat down. It might only have been 8 hours and she might have had her comfortable shoes on, but it was still nice to sit and take a load off. See now, fighting men are easy to come by. Smart men, on the other hand. They were both laughing in easy camaraderie, and it took Olivia a while to realize just how strange that was. She never laughed with new people like that. She got along with everybody, but she was very wary when it came to making actual friends. It was rare for her to be comfortable in a new kitchen with a colleague who might as well have been a stranger. Well, if you're not going to come to dinner with me, I guess I'll get going and see if I can gently point Paul towards something I like for dinner. Come by if you feel like it. I'll send you his location. It's easy to find if you feel like it. I'll let you settle in, Olivia. Welcome to the outpost. Olivia smiled and walked him to the door, and she felt good as she watched him drive away. It was a new beginning for her, and it felt good. Olivia looked at the kitchen table and nodded. It was 6:30, and she had made breakfast. Breakfast was the only meal of the day that she was any good at. Give her eggs and flour and she could do things. So she'd made pancakes and scrambled eggs, and cut some of the fruits in the fridge, and she hoped that Ellie would like it. She couldn't find out until Ellie got home, and if she didn't get home in, "Hey, that smells good. Did I get a roommate who can cook?" Awesome. Ellie bounced into the room. That was not something that somebody who was definitely well above 5 feet 6 inches and had 4 visible tattoos on her neck and arms, and was built like a tank, should be able to do, but her personality and her personal aesthetic seemed to be a constant battle, and everybody won. I can only make breakfast unless you like tuna salad and spam sandwiches. So I made breakfast. And it looks amazing. I didn't have dinner. Things just seemed to keep happening. I wasn't paged. I know it wasn't anything we needed more people for, but the people who were there didn't have a chance to stop working. So I am extremely happy to see this. Best roommate ever. Olivia laughed. A bit early to decide that, but if breakfast is all it takes, then I must have the best roommate ever. I should get going, but please stuff yourself, and as soon as we can, we'll figure out how we divvy up chores and groceries. You really stocked the fridge and pantry. I should pay half. Ellie shrugged. Don't sweat it. Consider this one a welcome gift. We'll split it next time. I like grocery shopping, and you're in luck because I make the best pasta sauces and the best stir-fries, so we're covered. Between us and Paul, we will not starve. Olivia grinned. I keep hearing about Paul and his amazing skills. Wait till you try his cooking. It's like cordon bleu level stuff. Even Angela eats when Paul cooks, and that evening we went to his place was the only time I ever saw food cross Angela's lips. Sounds like high praise for Paul. Very high. Now go on, if you're gonna walk, you'll be on time now. There are bikes to rent, apparently. I'm thinking of that. My bike is being shipped over next week. Bike? A Harley, baby. I modified her myself, and she is a beauty. Olivia tried to picture Ellie on a modified Harley, and it was easy to see the woman on a bike, from her combat boots-clad feet to her short black hair with one white streak. Olivia was sure Ellie would bounce on the Harley, too. It would be something to see. I should get going. I'll walk. I guess. Easier to find my way if I get lost. It's easy to get to the hospital. You just follow the signs and turn GPS on. It's only the cottage that's not on it, but I'm sure you'll get the hang of it. Don't worry about it. Until you do, just get Jason to drop you home. And get him to bring his own beer. Olivia laughed. Sure, I'll do that. See you later. Olivia managed to get to hospital without getting lost and managed to run into 3 people walking dogs. Big dogs. And since she loved dogs, she decided to get a start on making herself a part of the community, too. She was pretty pleased with herself by the time she got to the hospital, with 10 minutes to spare. She was changed and ready to report to duty when she was paged. Female, 34, pregnant, minor accident. Olivia swung into action. Leggett here. She's going into labor. She's 22 weeks. We need to stop this. Olivia nodded, aware that risks had risen considerably, and briskly got to work, keeping a cool head as controlled panic flowed around her, an environment where she thrived. She followed orders before Dr. Hart gave them, letting her training and her instincts take over as she did what needed to be done. In 20 minutes, they had the situation under control. Good work, Leggett. You kept a cool head. You knew what needed to be done. Olivia smiled at Dr. Hart. We need to monitor her overnight, then see if she needs bed rest. I'm inclined to recommend it, but we should see. Dr. Hart nodded. I don't recommend bed rest as a precaution unless it's necessary, so we will monitor her. There's her husband, Bud Adams, Dr. Olivia Leggett. She's one of our new residents. She helped save your baby, Bud. Liza is sleeping, and she'll be asleep for a while. Bud, a big grizzly bear of a man who looked half mad with panic, nodded and looked helplessly at Dr. Hart. She quickly explained what had happened to Bud. I told her she didn't need to drive to the store now. I told her I'd get it after my shift. She should just take things easy. You know this isn't easy for us, but we want this baby so bad. Dr. Hart. I know, Bud. Liza has to be more careful. We're considering bed rest, frankly, and it might be the best option for her. I'll keep her in bed myself if I have to, vowed the worried and obviously besotted man. The way he looked at his wife made Olivia want to both sigh and turn away, as if she had no right to witness moments so intimate. Stress can cause problems, too. I know it's not easy, but you've got to do everything you can to keep Liza from worrying. Bud, it's going to be harder now after this, but the medication we can prescribe for her for that is limited. Bud nodded. Going off her antidepressants hasn't been easy. I know that. If it persists, we'll put her on a lower dose of it. But the baby will be in far more danger if Liza's mental state gets any worse. Trust us, Bud. Bud nodded and turned to Olivia. Thank you, Dr. Leggett. Olivia smiled. She looks good now, Bud. We'll deal with this. It will be fine. Bud nodded and he zoned them out completely. He sat down beside his wife, took her hand, and just waited, as if he would wait for her forever. Olivia thought of that all day, the way Bud had just looked at his wife as if nothing else mattered. His entire world was his wife and the baby she carried. How would it feel to have somebody look at you like that, as if nothing else mattered? as if they simply could not live without you. It must be something special. It must be. Hey, Olivia, got a minute? Need a consult on your patient, Liza? Dr. Hart said to talk to you. Oh, yes, of course, Angela. Olivia briefed Angela, who nodded seriously. It was a little strange not to have to look up at somebody while talking. Angela was only an inch or so taller than Olivia. Yes, I agree. We'll monitor her for now. But there is a variant of her antidepressant that will work at a lower dose. Dr. Starr didn't want to switch her when she was doing well on her own. But maybe we can try that if she needs it. I think Bud might need it, joked Olivia. What? Bud, her husband. He adores her. You should have seen how he was looking at her. It was as if his heart was in his eyes. He was terrified and so determined to protect her and their baby at all costs. That's sweet. I know, but he might need a few Xanax prescriptions if he keeps that up. He is really on edge. I can take care of that if you think it's necessary. Oh, well, I'd prefer for you to do a consult and make up your mind. It might be a good idea. Angela smiled. You know, not everybody would have thought of that. You're good at this. Sure you don't want to switch to psych? We have fun delving into the mysteries of the human mind, you know. Plus, in a few years I'll have my own practice and I'll have rich clients who can afford the kind of billing I plan on doing to cover the community service I also plan on doing. Olivia grinned. Sounds like a plan, but I'm afraid I'm not that great at delving into the great mysteries of the human mind. I can hardly figure out my own most of the time. I wouldn't mind trying to figure out a few of those. Oh, hi Jason. I didn't realize you needed a consult at OB-GYN. Jason did not look offended at all. You never know, do you? I was told to prepare for a possible preemie. Really preemie? Olivia nodded. Yes, I know. Did I forget to say that it's okay now? We managed to stop the labor and we're waiting to see if it's going to be anything worse. She didn't break her water, so she might not even need complete bed rest. Hoping for the best. Jason grinned. I love good news. We'll stay prepared. But let's hope the news stays good and gets better. Give me a heads up no matter which way it goes, will you? Female. 34. Olivia nodded. Liza is her first baby. She and her husband would do anything for this child, I think. And for each other. Love can be like that. Or maybe I should say that if it's not like that, it's not love. Sounds like I should book you a psych eval too, Jason. You're beginning to sound a bit moony-eyed. Nothing wrong with being a romantic, Angela. It's good for the soul. Now, you can't tell me that you've never wished for somebody to love you like that. It's only human. Angela shrugged and turned to Olivia. Well then, I guess you can book an eval for Bud and we'll see about Liza. Sounds good. Excellent, Angela, thank you. Just doing my job, Liv. Olivia didn't say anything. She just smiled. She didn't really like nicknames to be given by people who didn't know her well, but it had been a losing battle since school and she really should just learn to let it go now. Olivia turned to Jason when Angela left. So, how about that dinner? Olivia laughed. You never let go, do you? Absolutely not. And just like that, everything was light again.
Chapter 3. Olivia was nearly dead on her feet by 4 p.m., not a.m., and she had to check that for herself anyway. She'd been on her feet for about 15 hours and she was dragging them. She'd started her shift at midnight and the hours she'd taken to sit down had been split over 5 different breaks. Thank God it's Friday had never felt more real. Leggett! Olivia winced, then smoothed her face out. Yes, Dr. Hart? You're on tomorrow from 10. What? The weekend clinic, Leggett. You can't have forgotten, can you? Olivia swallowed. No, of course not. 10. Yes, I'll be there. Good. You're off at 6. Go home, get some sleep, and be there bright and chipper at 10 in the morning. Olivia nodded, because what else could she do? Yes, Dr. Hart. Good. Good work today. But you're flagging, you're on break unless there's an emergency. Macintosh will cover for you. Oh, blessed Ellie. Thank you, Dr. Hart. Next time you're dead on your feet, don't wait for me to come to you. You should tell me. I've already told you how I feel about exhausted doctors and the judgment errors they make, and how hand-eye coordination gets worse when you go for a certain period of time without rest. Yes, Dr. Hart. I'm not going to tell you again, Leggett. Break room, now. Olivia nodded and set off gratefully. Getting comfortable in the break room was one of the things you had to work at when you started your residency. Olivia was quite literally dragging her feet by the time she got there, and she pretty much pitched forward onto the first empty bunk she saw. Hey! Olivia! Are you a zombie yet? Olivia managed to shake her head, buried as it was in the pillow. It was pure luck that she'd managed to aim for and hit the pillow. You're coming to Paul's tonight, right? Go away, Jason. You have got to come to Paul's tonight. He's doing a clam bake. It's going to be amazing. We're all going to eat so much that we'll sleep all weekend. That's great, Jason. I have to be at the clinic tomorrow, and possibly the day after, so I'm out. You're out of what? Paul, Olivia says she's not going to come to your place tonight. What? No, Liv, you have to come. It won't be the same without you, not even a little bit. Olivia was too tired to fight the nickname anymore. No hints she dropped had worked. Angela just kept at it, all wide-eyed and fairy-like, and Olivia had just given up. Guys, I just want to sleep. Come on, we'll get you caffeinated and then it'll all be fine. Come on, Olivia. We won't stop, you know. We'll keep at it. You can take a nap now if you agree to come. Olivia sighed. Don't you guys have clinic duty? No, we volunteer 1 weekend a month. Lucky bastards. Come on, say yes, Liv. Come on. Angela sat down on the bed beside Olivia, and that was what made Olivia agree. Fine. Fine, I agree, if you'll all leave me alone and let me take a nap now. Done deal. You could have just said so without the fuss, pointed out Jason, and to Olivia's relief, they all shut up and kept up their end of the deal. She was beginning to get a handle on most of the residents now. Jason was the playboy, both in the Casanova sense of the word and in the play sense of it. He seemed to play at everything, even if she'd seen him working with kids and knew that he was both good and good with them. Ellie was cheerful and good-natured, and extremely friendly, but also level-headed and dependable. Having her as a roommate was such a pleasure that she hoped Ellie would want to keep that arrangement up. Olivia tried her best to keep those breakfasts coming. The fridge and pantry, too, stayed mysteriously stocked. She hadn't spent that much time with Paul yet. He was the busiest one out of all the residents, and that was saying something. They were all busy enough to reduce them to tears at times. Well, she would meet him that evening. She couldn't wiggle out of it now. She had committed to going. It would be interesting, certainly, to meet a man who, despite being that busy and possibly as exhausted as she was, would choose to put on a clam bake for his colleagues. It boggled her mind, frankly. And then there was Angela. Angela seemed to have decided that they were great friends, and that she was Liv, and occasionally Livy, but she meant no harm. Despite looking like she should be a bubbly, outgoing person, Olivia had the feeling that being friendly came at a cost to Angela. Maybe it was because she was so exquisite to look at. Maybe that made friendship more complicated. She should be kinder to the young woman, she decided. She was younger, too, so she must be a prodigy and a genius to have made it that far that quickly. She could respect that. Olivia fell asleep having made that decision, resolutely refusing to think about how Jason had been creeping into her thoughts too often lately. But in her dreams, her refusal meant nothing. His striking blue eyes and his charming smile beguiled her as she slept. "Wow, you look amazing, Olivia. I wish I could pull off something like that." Olivia looked at the rather fluttery, floaty top she had worn over her jeans, and she chuckled. "Anybody could wear this. This is what I wear when I haven't had time to work out. That green looks so good on you. It would clash terribly with my hair. You have a pink streak in your hair today, it would be the ideal contrast." "I'd look like a whale." "You would not," insisted Olivia. "But I would never be able to wear those boots and that jacket. There isn't enough space between where the jacket would end and the boots would begin. I'd look like one of those photos where one section was just sliced out." Ellie laughed. Olivia loved Ellie's laugh. It was a sound of pure enjoyment, booming and delighted. "I have to agree with you there, but there are other jackets and other boots. Anyway, are we ready? Are you sure you're all right with walking? Remember what I just said about the exercise? Anyway, we're going down to the beach, aren't we? A clam bake, a real clam bake. I didn't even know people still did that, to be honest. I'm kind of excited. That might be the 4 sodas you drank. Don't forget your scarf and your coat." "I won't," said Olivia with a smile. Yes, Ellie was definitely the best roommate she'd ever had, other than Kara, of course. Kara would forever be the best. She should call Kara. She'd missed a couple of calls from her. She needed to catch up with her best friend. Olivia was, perhaps, a bit hopped up on sugar and caffeine by the time she got to the beach with Ellie. "Look at that, they've already got the fire going and everything. Come on." Olivia followed Ellie, feeling a little shy. There were more people than she had expected. Jason, of course, was right in the middle of attention and enjoying every second of it. She thought she could see his eyes sparkle all the way over there. The sun was setting, and it was going to be a beautiful, clear night. It didn't matter if she was bound to end up regretting staying out late instead of sleeping as she should be. She was going to enjoy that evening. She deserved that break. Olivia laughed when a chorus of welcome greeted them. She hadn't realized that she was becoming a part of them, a community of their own. She recognized more people from the hospital, including her favorite nurses. Yes, it was nice to be welcomed. "What can I do to help?" asked Olivia when she made it to Paul. It was hard not to smile when you saw Paul. He was tall, slim, elegant, and unfailingly cheerful, with an underlying kindness that must make it comforting to see him in an emergency, which was unfortunately when most people saw him. "If you insist, I will put you to work," he declared, and even if she hadn't insisted, she let him do so. She helped with soaking the canvas, layering the seaweed in the food, and after half an hour of it, she both regretted having made the offer to help and felt like she had definitely earned the meal. "Right, now we wait. Grab more drinks, everybody. Let's have music. And feel free to have at the snacks, but don't ruin your appetite for the main course." "Sure thing, Mom," teased Olivia, and Paul chuckled. Even within a community, there were always groups. Maybe it was only natural that she eventually found herself with Jason, Ellie, Angela, and Paul. "No shop talk," declared Angela after enduring it for a few minutes, and Paul steered the conversation smoothly to their lives. And inevitably, to dating. "Haven't had time," said Olivia, though that wasn't entirely honest of her. She knew she could have made the time if she'd wanted to. She'd just been burnt before, and had no intention of being burnt again. She would choose her time to date this time, and she would do it right. The next time she got serious with somebody, it was going to last. There would be no power plays. There would be no manipulation. She would compromise on many things, but not that. I can understand that. I had to work for my scholarship and then med school and now this. Who has time to date? Anyway, our only options are people who work at the hospital, and I've seen what happens there. What happens? Asked Olivia, curious. Paul sighed dramatically before answering. My sister is a nurse. She dated a doctor who didn't bother to tell her that he was already married. Those who knew didn't tell her, they just spread ugly rumors about her, and those who didn't know just treated it like hot gossip. That's terrible. She found out, and she was heartbroken. It happens so often. I don't mean that every married doctor lies about being married, but affairs are so common. It's understandable, isn't it? Asked Jason. Everybody turned to him. I didn't say it was okay, I said it was understandable. Everybody still looked at him. Well, it's a high-pressure situation, and if your partner is not in the same business, they don't really know what it's like. It's easy to get drawn to somebody who knows what it's like. Was it her imagination, or was he looking at her when he said that? Olivia shook it off. So, you cheated on somebody, didn't you? Asked Angela. Olivia grinned as Jason squirmed. It's not as simple as that. Anyway, I wasn't talking about myself. I was talking about in general. That's why there are so many affairs in hospitals. And why they blow up spectacularly, too. With that much stress, things are bound to go wrong. Mothers should hear this esteemed doctor speaking honestly before they pressure their children to marry doctors instead of becoming doctors themselves, mumbled Ellie, making the girls hoot in approval. Exactly. We need trophy husbands who will pick up after us and cook and clean for us and support us unconditionally. That's what we need. Where are the mothers telling their sons to grow up learning how to cook and make themselves pretty so that they can snag a nice doctor wife? The girls laughed again, Olivia slipping an arm around Angela's shoulders. Excellent point, Angela. We need to find those mothers and ask them how well they taught their sons, because we need good husbands who know how to take care of their hardworking, responsible, important doctor wives. They giggled, and Jason grinned good-naturedly. You know what, that's fair enough. I asked for that one. I will put out a call for such mothers and their sons, and you can all hold interviews and decide who you're going to pick. How about that? The girls toasted him, approving his idea, and Olivia sat back, leaning on her hands, her coat around her now that it was getting pretty chilly. The beach was lovely, but she wanted to walk along and find the place she could see from her cottage window. She wanted to walk with her feet in the water, watch scuttling crabs, see the stars wink and be reflected in the water. She wanted to watch the glory of the sunset and feel at home. But it wasn't so bad being there with friends either. Angela got up to get another drink, Paul got up to check on progress, and Ellie grabbed her sketchpad from her bag and started drawing. Ellie, Olivia had discovered, was an excellent artist. Olivia couldn't sit still any longer. She got up. Jason looked up at her. Going somewhere? Just for a walk. I'll come with you. Olivia hesitated, but there was no polite way to say no, and besides, she didn't really want to say no. She didn't really want company. But he stood there, looking so appealing, and he looked like he would be hurt if she said no. So she nodded, and let him fall into step beside her as she started walking. You're not that comfortable around so many people, are you? Olivia smiled. What gave it away? I put up a good enough show, usually. Oh, you did. You just don't open up and you don't crack too many silly jokes. People who like attention usually do one or the other. Olivia shrugged, stopped to pick up a shell. Maybe. You crack a lot of jokes. But I don't open up. I didn't say that. Well, I did consider going on stage for a while, so I guess it's natural that I like attention. Olivia laughed. I was a ballerina, remember? But you chose not to do it when it came to being the focus on stage. Olivia had to concede the point. Being a doctor isn't exactly an introvert's choice either. Isn't it? Maybe not that of a classic introvert, but the focus is never on the doctor. At least, not on the individual who is the doctor. It's just the fact of what they can do. What we can do. Our faces don't matter. What we like, who our friends are, our family, none of that matters. Not to our patients, maybe. All of that matters to people around us, though. You mean nepotism? And prejudices. I'm a black woman. People will be far likelier to trust you than me. You'd find being a pediatrician far easier than I would. Jason considered it seriously, which she appreciated. I suppose so. But then people would trust you more as a gynecologist. You'd think, but not always. Not really. I have to work at it. You're right, I'm not naturally a people person. I make friends easily enough, but letting people in isn't easy for me. As she said it, she realized that that was exactly what she was doing with Jason, though she was letting him in. But she hurried on before she could think about it. I have to work to be trusted by people in the community before they'll respect my advice. It doesn't help that I look about 18 either. Jason chuckled. I suppose it doesn't. Why pediatrics? She asked. Why not pediatrics? See? You dodge questions about yourself and crack jokes. Jason chuckled. Well, I guess I wanted to be somebody who made an immediate difference, and that's a doctor. I love kids, so I figured a pediatrician would be a good bet. It's as simple as that. Really? Why do I feel like there's something more to it? Jason shrugged, picked up a shell, rinsed it, and handed it to her. I don't know. I'm not as deep as you are, Olivia. I'm just a guy. What you see is what you get. There isn't much digging to do under the surface. That's not true. But she didn't press him. It's getting dark. It'll be another hour before the food is ready. I know. I was hoping I could walk to the beach near our cottage, but the tide is too high. It would be dangerous even at low tide. You never know. Olivia laughed and turned to him, her brown eyes glowing. What's life without a few risks? You're right, said Jason, and without warning, he gripped her arms, pulled her to him and up until she was standing on her toes, and kissed her. Olivia felt the world disappear. She stopped feeling the shifting sand under her feet. She stopped feeling the water lapping at her bare feet. She stopped feeling anything but his lips against hers.
Oh no, it's about to get hot.
But we can't put this on YouTube as they don't allow it.
I'm sorry.
But check the description of this video to join the Romance Audiobook Insiders and get details on how you can get the steamy scenes in future.
Okay, back to the story.
Olivia swallowed. I didn't mean for that to happen. I did. But I didn't know that would happen. She looked away, finally. The sand shifting under her feet was more intense. The water had risen some more. Waves swirled around her ankles, splashing the roll-up of her jeans. I don't think. We don't have to think. Jason stepped towards her, and she knew he meant to pull her into his arms again, kiss her until she was helpless again. An alarmingly big part of her wanted to let him. Too much of her wanted him to do just that. That was why she found the strength and made the effort to draw away, to step back. It was harder than she could have expected. It shouldn't have been that hard. She knew how to step away from people. It was practically a life skill at that point. We do. We have to think. Jason, we're colleagues. We'll be working together for a couple of years. This could end badly. Or it could end well. Take a chance, Olivia. Take a chance and come home with me. Let me show you who I can be for you. It was an odd way of putting it, she thought, but she was tempted. She was more than a little tempted. Livy! Hey, there you are. Paul says he needs you. Hey, I'm coming, she called to Angela, and, grateful that the moment was interrupted, she turned away from Jason.
Hey there. Did you know that we've other hot romances like this that we want to release? But we need your help. Subscribing shows us that you're part of our journey and allows us to make more of these stories at a higher quality. So please, my queen, subscribe to the Romancely YouTube channel now. Thanks. Now back to your story. Chapter 4. Olivia knew she should stay away from Jason that night, but she was drawn to him over and over again, until she found herself sitting by the bonfire, beside him, almost touching but not quite. Nothing she could do was enough. Whatever she did, something pulled her to him. After a beer, she was beginning to ask herself just why she was stopping herself. Angela sat down beside them, leaning her head on Olivia's shoulder. Livy, I'm so sleepy. Oh, I don't think I can drive back. You drove here? I thought you didn't have a car here. I rented one. Take care of me, will you, Livy? Angela became deadweight. Olivia wrapped her arm around the girl. I think I'd better take her home. Home, said Angela, definitely slurring more than a little. There was absolutely no way she could drive back. Olivia had just been thinking of a second beer and maybe seeing where things led with Jason. Maybe this was a good thing. She could put herself far away from temptation now. Let me see if Paul can take her home, interrupted Jason. Olivia shook her head. No, he's the host, he can't leave. Besides, it's a girl thing, Jason. No matter how nice we think a guy is, we don't let him take a drunk girl home unless they live together, or might as well. It's just how things are. It's a code. We don't break that code. Jason looked disappointed, but then he shrugged and the smile was back. Well then, I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow? I'm volunteering at the clinic too. Women come with kids. It makes sense. Oh, so I'll see you, right? Let me just find Ellie and… There she is. Ellie. Ellie waved. Olivia pointed at Angela, mimed driving and pointed towards the road away from the beach. Ellie nodded. All women understood what certain things meant. You didn't really have to say the words. Okay, so… No, I've got her, thanks, Jason. I've got her. Good thing I got everybody's locations on GPS today. I can take her home. I'll catch you later. Tell everybody I'm sorry I had to leave abruptly, especially Paul. Jason nodded, and if it hadn't been for an almost passed out Angela, he would have kissed her again. She knew it. There we go, she murmured, and managed to get Angela up and walking. You're the best, Livy. I know. Come on, here's your car. And here's your bag. And here we have the key. Can you sit in the front? Do you need to lie down in the back? Front, declared Angela, though not with enough conviction to inspire much confidence. All right, if you say so. Come on, let's strap you in. The bestest ever, Livy. You're my favorite. I'm so glad you came here. I got to meet my favorite. That's sweet, Angela. Okay, you're all strapped in. Here, drink some of this water, and we'll be on our way. Sip slowly. Okay? I love you, Livy. Olivia chuckled. It was hard to be annoyed about the Livy bit when the girl was so adorably drunk. Sure. And I love you, Angela. Come on, let's go. Olivia drove, as Angela sipped water and started singing Taylor Swift. It wasn't exactly her thing, but why not? Olivia sang along, and by the time she got Angela home, she felt tipsy on the evening. Tuck me in, Livy. You're a brat, aren't you? You're lucky you're cute. Now, keys to the house. These? Great. Let's get you in. They stumbled inside. You're heavier than you look, or I'm not as strong as I used to be. Either way, I'm beginning to feel it. Come on now. Let's get you in there and into bed. Bed. Stay with me. Wouldn't that be nice? But I've got clinic tomorrow. I have to get home and get to bed and then make it to work. Now, shoes off, and here, let's get your makeup off with this wipe. Wow, your skin really is that gorgeous, you've barely anything on your face. Aren't you just the luckiest thing ever? Okay, we need to get a trash can. And this one will do great. Here's a bottle of water, drink as much as you can. And I'm putting 2 aspirin here, so you should have that in the morning, too. Wouldn't hurt to have one now, too. No aspirin. Okay, in the morning, then. You're going to need it. Sleep now. Stay with me, Livy. I'm lonely. You've got all of us, Angela. I'll see you tomorrow or the day after. Take care of yourself. Sleep late tomorrow. She was already falling asleep, mumbling something. Olivia grinned as she made her way out, pulled the door closed and locked, and got outside. Well now, she needed a ride back, didn't she? She hadn't thought of that. Her first instinct really was to call Jason. She pushed that one down firmly. She wasn't going to dive into something so quickly like that. Besides, the last thing she needed was to get into the habit of depending on a guy. There were no cabs around. Ellie and she had both walked. Well then, she could walk. It was dark. There wasn't much of a moon, but the skies were clear and there were so many stars. You didn't see stars like that in the city. Olivia felt surprisingly safe as she walked, following directions on her phone. So when she suddenly heard something behind her, it was a shock. She yelped a little and swung around. Who's there? And there was nothing, only silence. A little spooked, she walked faster, and she must not have been paying attention to her GPS because she took 2 wrong turns in quick succession and found herself on what seemed like an unmarked footpath. It was definitely not on the map. Something behind her, as if somebody was stepping on dried leaves, or her heart beat faster. Her palms tingled, and her fingertips began to go cold. She knew what was happening to her body. She was preparing for fight or flight. Fingers trembling, trying not to fumble the phone, she clicked through and called. Jason answered on the first ring. I was hoping you would call, Dr. Leggett. Jason, listen. I got a little lost coming back from Angela's apartment. Lost? Are you walking back? Jason cursed, loud and clear. Yes, well, I'm lost and I'm getting a little spooked. It's probably nothing, but I'm already in my car. Can you tell me where you took the wrong turn? I'd passed the bus stop and then I was supposed to take the second left, I think, but I might have taken the first left and then another right like you're supposed to on the other road. I know I did it once. You're on a dirt road that's not on the map, aren't you? Yes, that's where. Who's there? Who's that? Listen to me, Olivia. Turn the flashlight on. On your phone, go on. Now turn speakerphone on as well. There, now whoever is there can hear me, and you can see all around you. If you see anybody, if you see so much as a shadow, scream. Scream as loudly as you can. I'm only a minute away. I'll be right there. Okay, I'm fine. I can't see anybody. It's all right. God, it's so dark here, Jason. I didn't know I was walking into the wooded part of the island. Well, it's a small island. It's easy to get from one part to the other. Listen, I'm honking. Can you hear me? Yes, I hear you. You're going to annoy people, honking at this time of the night like that. Jason told her what he cared about that with another short epithet, expressive if crude, and Olivia heard the hum of the engine. I can hear, and she saw the headlights. You're here. I see you. I see you too. Olivia ran to the car. Her cold fingers couldn't grip the handle well enough to open it, but it didn't matter. He leaned towards her and opened the door for her. She climbed in, her legs more than a little watery and weak. I'm sorry, making such a fuss about what's probably nothing. Don't say you're sorry, not for that, for not paying attention to the directions properly. Sure, but even for that, nobody should have to deal with something like this. Shit, you look like you're in a little bit of shock. Olivia. Olivia shook her head, though her teeth were beginning to chatter a little. She pulled her coat tighter around herself. I'm fine, really. This is all just a little. You see, when I was in school, I was almost kidnapped once. It was that old stranger danger chestnut. My family, they're pretty well off, so I guess they hoped for ransom. Or maybe they didn't know and hoped to sell me. I don't know. But I was late coming back from dance practice once, and somebody grabbed me. I screamed and they let go, and somebody saw them and shouted, and I ran until I fell and scraped my knees and bruised my foot so badly that I couldn't dance for a week after that. I guess I'm just a little easily spooked after that. She was babbling a bit. She knew she was, but it was better than sitting there, teeth chattering, nearly catatonic. No wonder you were afraid. Even without that, anybody would have been spooked back there. Don't worry about it, Olivia. I'm just glad you called me, and I could help. That's all. I'm glad. Thanks for coming. You didn't have to. Don't worry about it. Look, do you want to text Ellie and ask her to be ready for us to swing by and pick her up? I'll take you home, but you might be better off not being alone. Yes, that sounds good. Thanks, Jason. She was glad that he hadn't pushed and tried to take her home with him, or to stay over with them. He'd known what she needed and was giving it to her. There was more to this man than the rather frivolous, outgoing face he put on for the world. There was much more to him. Ellie says she's ready and waiting. Good. Dependable girl, Ellie. There she is. I see her already. They barely slowed down before Ellie hopped in. Get us home, Jason. Are you all right, Olivia? Yes. She's had a bit of a shock. She needs something hot to drink and blankets and light. I know the drill, Jason. You're fine, Olivia. You're not hurt, are you? Oh no. No, I'm not hurt. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. This is all just an overreaction. You leave us to be the judges of that, and look at that, we disagree with you entirely. It's not an overreaction. You can't control your body's panic responses with precision, you know that, Olivia. If something triggers it unexpectedly, then that's what it does. We'll just deal with it. There, we're home. Doesn't it look good? Our home? It's a good thing we left the porch light on. It's a welcoming sight. Jason, thank you, but under the circumstances. I won't come in, said Jason, understanding immediately, as if it had never been a question at all. Good. Thanks, Jason. I'll take it from here. Come on, Olivia. I'm fine, really, insisted Olivia. But she was still glad to have Ellie's arm supporting her. She was glad when Ellie guided her to the couch and let her sit down, when she put the throw on her knees, pulled her sandy sandals off and found two thick and rather ugly socks to put on instead. I'm just going to make you a cup of tea. I have chamomile. Sounds good. Her teeth still wanted to chatter, but they were under control now. By the time Ellie came back with the cup of tea, Olivia was grateful and a little ashamed. More than a little ashamed. I'm sorry. Really, Olivia. If you say you're sorry again, I will smack you, or poke you, or kick you, or something. I promise I will. Don't say it again. All right, agreed Olivia meekly. She sipped her tea, and as expected, it did make her feel better. Warmth seeped into her, but it wasn't just the tea or the socks. It was having people she could count on, not just to get her to safety, but to make her feel secure and comforted. It was more than she could have expected of anybody except Kara. Even her family. Do you want to talk about it? Olivia didn't want to, but she knew from experience that it did make it less scary. So she sighed. I lost my way a bit and thought somebody was following me. It was probably my imagination, but it was real to me at that moment. That must have been scary. Olivia chuckled weakly, glad that her hands had stopped trembling. She might even be able to hold the cup in one hand now. She wouldn't try just yet, though. That's putting it mildly. I was nearly kidnapped once as a child. It's kind of left a mark. I just bet it did. Are you sure you don't want something stronger than tea? Olivia considered it, but she didn't feel like she needed it. And she was exhausted enough that she was sure she'd fall asleep without any aids. Anyway, I think I'm good. If you say so. Now, I'm going to grab my comforter and roll up in it and sleep on the floor of your bedroom tonight. What? Ellie, you don't have to do that. It's fine. You've done enough already. I don't have to do that, but I want to. So you can just be quiet and let me. Can't you? Of course you can. So, a hot bath for you, a quick shower for me, and we'll put ourselves to bed. How about that? Olivia considered objecting, but honestly, it was a comforting thought. She nodded. Good. And we need to figure out baking and bake Jason a whole bunch of muffins. He really was there for you. I know. He seems like such a fool. In the Shakespearean sense, maybe. But he's not. He's got more than that in him. There's more to him than it seems. I dismissed him, too. But he has a way of seeing exactly what people need, and he's sweet enough to try to give people that. He'll be good in pediatrics. He gets along great with kids, and he's good with parents, too. Olivia glanced up at Ellie. Why, Ellie? You sound as if you might have a little crush on him. Ellie laughed. I do, don't I? But he's not my type. Got an eye on him, Olivia? What? No, of course not. That's a vehement denial. Never mind, I'm not gonna pry. I'm gonna go and draw you that bath, all right? Olivia nodded again. She sat back, closed her eyes, and tried to tell herself that it had all been because of her overworked imagination. There had been nobody out there, of course. Nothing bad had been about to happen. It had probably been a raccoon or something. There were probably raccoons and other raccoon-like things in the wooded areas. Olivia was not an outdoorsy country girl at all. She couldn't have told between a raccoon and a bobcat. She just hoped to come across neither in a no-holds-barred encounter. But she couldn't shake it. When she closed her eyes, she could still feel it, that prickling on the back of her neck, her heart beating so hard, the tingling in her fingertips and her toes, getting ready to fight or run for her life. Everything about her had screamed that there was danger. Instincts mattered. They picked up on things that your brain didn't process and put into words for you, wasting valuable time. They picked up on things and translated them straight into feelings that you had to act on. Something had been there, something that didn't mean her well. Olivia shuddered and opened her eyes. There was no point thinking of things like that. She was letting her adrenaline-charged brain make too much of it. In the morning, she would look back and feel silly about all of this. Olivia! Coming! I don't know what scents you like and stuff, but I like loads of bubbles, so I've put a lot of it in there. Olivia grinned. I'm good with bubbles. Great. I was thinking I'd get you some chocolate to go with it. You know, like with Dementors. Olivia laughed. Seriously? Harry Potter. Big fan, admitted Ellie. Me too. I babbled something about Ollivander and his wand shop to Dr. Hart on my first day. Ellie giggled again, and Olivia had to admit, once she got in the bath, that she did feel better. She'd begun to get warm with the tea and the socks, but this was better. Tea tree oil, she realized as she took a deep breath. She liked that too. Ellie was a godsend, as much as Jason was. Ellie knocked, thankfully interrupting her before her reveries could turn to Jason, and came in with chocolate. Got chocolate. Thanks. You're right. It will chase the shadows away. Ellie nodded. It will. I'll be right outside. If you need me, even if it's absolutely silly, call me. Promise. But then Ellie was gone, and Olivia was left alone with her thoughts. She wouldn't think about the scare she'd had. She refused to give in to that. She wouldn't think of it. But then what was left? Without that, she had no way to not think of what had happened between her and Jason. It had been. She closed her eyes again, and this time, it wasn't darkness that filled her mind but brightness. It was bright and colorful, and full of life. Alive. He had made her feel so alive. It was how she felt when she was in the middle of an emergency, as if she held life itself in her hands, and she would win no matter what. It had been a thrill, and it had been wrong, she told herself very sternly, but wrong or not. Her lips still tingled from how he'd kissed her, and her fingertips now tingled from a very different sensation. Shit, she muttered to herself. Olivia? Everything all right? I'm fine, she called out hurriedly. Just talking to myself. Sure, that's not concerning at all, don't you worry about it. You just keep on talking to yourself. Olivia had to laugh again. Between Jason and Ellie, she definitely felt better. She couldn't remember getting over one of those. All right. She could call it a panic attack. It wasn't weakness. She was a doctor, for heaven's sake. She knew better than that so quickly before. The man was definitely going to get a cake, and so was Ellie, whether she liked it or not. Olivia gave up and just scrubbed herself vigorously and got out of the bath. Obviously, alone time wasn't going to work for her. She might as well get out and do some reading. It would be more useful than dreaming about Jason, or trying not to have waking nightmares about what her panic made her imagine might have happened in the woods. The darkness, with light twinkling down. It was comforting. Really, it had been a rookie mistake, letting that twig crack underfoot. Being careful about such things was not optional. Still, it was a lovely night, and it had been a lovely evening. There had been music and good food and laughter and new beginnings and, oh yes, kisses. There had been kisses. There was no way to forget about the kisses. Wind whispering outside, birds calling to each other. The sea in the distance. Yes, everything was lovely. The stage was wonderfully set for a grand romance. It was nice not to have to work so hard to get all the details right. They were all just there this time. It would be perfect. They would live happily ever after.
Chapter 5. You made breakfast? I'm not working today. It was my turn. Does that mean I'll have to take a turn at dinner? Because it's going to be sandwiches or stir-fry. I can't make anything else. Ellie laughed. I'm fine with either, but you don't have to. You had a rough night, so I wanted to make something nice for you. So we have buttermilk biscuits and sausage gravy, and we have grits, and we have some nice ham and greens to go with it all. Olivia frowned, a little puzzled. That's so. Ellie, where did you learn to make such good Southern food? Ellie grinned. Why, back home in Alabama. Olivia nearly gasped when Ellie turned the drawl on. Ellie giggled again when she saw how shocked Olivia was. I know, I don't exactly advertise it. My family and I don't get along very well, to be honest. It's my grandmother who taught me how to make all of this, and Nana and I were peas in a pod. She didn't really get along with the rest of her family either. She's the one the rest of my family, blamed for me being, well, like me. But she's the only one who cared what I wanted to be. Or who I was. Needless to say, I'm a great disappointment to my family. A doctor? You're a doctor and a disappointment to your family? My God, this is wonderful. You could be a chef if you didn't want to be a doctor. Really? It did turn out pretty well today. I only make all this as a special treat. I am a doctor, I know it's not exactly the definition of healthy. But I figured we needed a little something special today. This is a lot of something special. Thanks, Ellie. Ellie smiled, full of sunshine. Olivia couldn't imagine how anybody could not fall in love with Ellie. Thanks. I don't have much to do with my family now that Nana has passed, so I try to make family wherever I go. A bit needy, I know, but it's nice to be looked at and seen as just me, and not a failure. I was supposed to join societies and pretend we weren't in the 21st century and marry my father's partner's son to consolidate the family business. I didn't want to do any of that, so I had to find out the hard way that there are limits on even a mother's love. And you chose to specialize in obstetrics. Ellie shrugged. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. But it does help me not become cynical, you know. Olivia could not imagine Ellie being cynical. How? Well, I see all these people who would do anything, literally anything for their children, and I know that if my parents couldn't love me no matter what, that means they never loved me enough. There aren't supposed to be conditions there. At least, not like this. It's not like killed somebody or destroyed a planet or something. I think they might have preferred that, to be honest. Wow. I'm sorry, Ellie. You don't deserve any of that. No, it's fine. I've been pretty much on my own for years now. I'm good, I really am. Olivia smiled at the woman she had just vowed she would protect until the end of time. Only child? Yes, thank heavens. I can't imagine how it would have felt to have a sibling and not be able to protect them from all of that. I have 4 sisters, 2 of them, twins, and 2 brothers. My brother Caleb is engaged to Kara, my best friend. She's a florist. Well, she's actually an artist and a florist. My sisters are musicians. Hazel plays the cello and Hattie is a violinist. They're first chairs in the State Symphony. They're amazingly accomplished. My oldest brother, Daniel, is a scientist. He's on a project in Antarctica, trying to save the planet and things like that. Wow, that's an incredibly accomplished family. I know. My parents are doctors, too. Failure has never been an option in my family. But it's not like anybody has to succeed in any particular thing. My mom once told me that if my ambition in life is to have a garden full of flowers and be able to pay my bills and watch the sun rise every morning with happiness in my heart, then as long as I achieved that, it was fine. She sounds wonderful. Ellie sounded wistful, and she looked almost sad. She is. And once I tell them all about you, you're going to be adopted into our family just as much as Kara was. And you won't even have to marry any of my siblings to do it. Ellie let herself laugh. Sounds like a good deal. So, what would they think of Jason? I have no idea, and I see no reason to find out. Come on, Olivia. I could see that there's something between the two of you. You were too stressed out to notice what he was like after he dropped you home, but you should have seen him. He was half raging against whatever hurt you and the rest terrified that you were hurt. It was thoughtful of him to pick me up and then leave us alone. Olivia shrugged. He's a thoughtful man, and he's a friend. There's nothing more than that. Ellie didn't press her, thankfully. Well, you have to get going in 15, so you'd better hurry. And hurry she did, all the way to the clinic, where she found that she had a packed day. Dr. Hart was in no mood to be gentle, and Olivia welcomed the toughness. She welcomed being pushed hard enough that she couldn't even take a break. She welcomed meeting so many people that faces began to blur into each other. When Jason finally found her, she was glad to shake her head at him. No time, I'm afraid. Got to keep working. Take a breath, Olivia. Come on. You don't have to work yourself to death just to avoid me. I promise. I'm not. Olivia tried to deny it, but it was obviously true. Hey, guys! Crazy day, huh? Olivia wasn't sure if she was relieved or sorry for the interruption, but there was Angela. Angela! What are you doing here? How are you feeling? I feel fine. I should feel like hell, shouldn't I? I feel fine, though. I had to come in, I had some paperwork to deal with and stuff. So, what's up? Olivia smiled and shook her head. I can't believe you sound this good. All thanks to you, Livy. You know, I owe you. Why don't I take you for dinner? We'll make a girls' night out of it. Sorry, Jason, can't invite you on that. Well, Come on, it'll be fun. Say yes. Come on, yes. Yes, right? Olivia nodded yes, and she could admit to herself that it was partly because she wanted an excuse to get out of dinner with Jason. She didn't quite trust herself to be alone with him. Angela seemed to have decided that she owed Olivia a life debt. She did not leave Olivia's side unless she had to, and before Olivia knew it, the young woman was trying to book every evening of her damn life. Jason noticed, too. When Angela left, he looked grumpy. "I helped, too, you know." Olivia chuckled. "Of course you did, by coming to my rescue, not hers, and she doesn't know that. Come on, we'll have a bite together for lunch." She shouldn't have said it, but there it was, and there was no taking it back. "I mean in the hospital cafeteria," she added quickly, and she set off before he could stop her. When she got there, she was glad to see Paul already sitting at a table. She waved, grabbed a tray and a sandwich and water, and joined him. "You abandoned us early, Olivia." Paul looked so mournful that Olivia pouted. "I know. I'm sorry. I had to take Angela home. But you didn't come back. I hoped you'd come back. Didn't you like the food?" "Of course I liked the food. But you didn't come back. You must come for dinner, to my place. I'll make you what you like." "Paul, of course I liked everything, it was amazing, and I was sorry not to be able to hang out longer, but..." "Wait, I thought you were off today." "I was paged. But it's strange, when I got here, Dr. Benedict said he hadn't paged me." "Weird, huh? But since I was here anyway, he decided to put me to work." Paul looked so mournful that Olivia nodded. "Sure, I'll come for dinner. I'll even help you with prep. I'll do the chopping for you. And the peeling and the slicing." "You will?" Paul brightened up so much that Olivia had to laugh again. "That's not fair, I've been trying to." Olivia was saved by her pager. "I have to go. That's Liza." She ran, to find Liza sitting in a wheelchair, wheezing, her eyes wide and terrified. "I can feel it again. I can feel it again, oh my God, Dr. Leggett, I can feel it." "Breathe, Liza. Breathe, Dr. Hart is coming, and for now I need you to try and breathe." She snapped orders, getting Liza hooked up, checking her vitals. "How far apart have the contractions been?" "Where's Bud?" "He went to look for Dr. Hart. He timed them. 10 minutes. I thought. I'm only 24 weeks now. I can't. I can't. Look at me, Liza. We're going to try our best to stop this, okay? Blood pressure elevated, temperature normal, we can work with that, Liza. Now look at me. We're going to try our best to stop this, and you have to stop panicking to help us." I can't, sobbed the woman, and Olivia was relieved to see Dr. Hart. Dr. Hart snapped out orders, and Olivia anticipated them, already working, trying her best to soothe Liza. "Breathe, Liza. Listen to me now, if your baby is born today, we will do everything we can to save her. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure she's not." "Sedative," snapped Dr. Hart, but Olivia was already on it. "Increased dose of nifedipine. Get her in her room, we need to monitor her. Liza, listen to Dr. Leggett. We're working for you and your baby here." "Bud, I need Bud," she sobbed. Bud turned up right on cue. Olivia let Bud take over soothing his wife as she worked. She jogged beside Liza's bed as they moved her to the room, Liza beginning to calm down, thanks to the sedative. "Time," snapped Dr. Hart. 12 minutes since the last one, Dr. Hart. "We need her in for an ultrasound. The baby, Rose, we named her Rose. Is she okay? Is she?" Bud couldn't finish the sentence. Let us do our jobs, Bud. We're checking. We're doing everything we can. He nodded, a big man, terrified, helpless. Olivia had to block him out, block out his fear, and get Liza in for her scan. Her heart beat so hard when they put the gel on the wand and moved it on Liza's big belly. Olivia closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to anybody who might be listening. A heartbeat. Rose, whispered Liza. That's Rose. I don't see anything wrong here, Liza, not with Rose. She's just a little too eager to get out here and be with her mom and dad. We've just got to keep her in there. Have you felt anything since then? No. No, nothing, confirmed Liza, and Olivia sighed in relief. There, I think we're good, and we're going to change your prescription a bit and keep you overnight here. There are schools of thought about bed rest. There are studies that indicate that it makes no difference. But I think more rest will be good for you, anyway. Your water didn't break again, so that's good, but you need to rest far more, Liza. That gives you an extra chance. That gives Rose an extra chance. That's worth it, isn't it? You're quitting your job, Liza. I'm not having a discussion about it. It's done. No more. You're going to quit. If Teresa won't listen to you and give you time off, you're going to quit. I'm not arguing this time, Bud. I'm not, I swear. She's exhausted, Bud. You need to let her sleep now. We'll both be close by, all right, Liza? Get some rest. Once outside, Dr. Hart and Olivia went to the clinic again, sandwich forgotten. You seem worried, noted Dr. Hart. The ultrasound, it was okay, but something didn't feel right? I'm sure it's just something in my head. I checked, there was nothing out of the ordinary. Dr. Hart nodded. Still, we'll have Liza come in and do more frequent scans. And we'll get somebody to check on her. I am worried about the blood pressure. She's 24 weeks. We can't rule out preeclampsia. It's not high enough for that, but we have to. Poor Liza. They've been trying for so long, and it's turning out to be such a difficult pregnancy for her. Olivia couldn't get Liza out of her mind for the rest of the day. The worry in her eyes and in Bud's had touched her heart. She worked hard, she paid attention, but half her mind was on Liza. She went in and checked on her multiple times, but she was resting. She'd be kept overnight for observation, but she would be fine and sent home the next day, with more progesterone and a higher dose of steroids and more nifedipine. And they would be preparing for a preemie, keeping neonatal updated, and they would be preparing for the worst while they tried their best to keep Liza from thinking of the worst. It was her job. This is what she did. This is what she wanted to do. This is what she had chosen to do instead of becoming a ballerina and dancing to Swan Lake. She would do it, to the very best of her ability. And it would have to be enough. It would be enough. Olivia stopped second-guessing herself and got back to work, because there was work to be done. There were people to help. She would help them. Jason watched as Olivia laughed, helping Paul with dinner prep. She had come to dinner, as promised, and Jason had come, taking advantage of the open invitation Paul had offered all of them. Ellie had brought buttermilk biscuits that she had baked herself. Now there was a surprise of a woman. Ellie had come roaring on her Harley, with Olivia sitting behind her, and it had been a sight. Ellie was a biscuit-baking, bubbly, biker doctor. There was a combination you didn't often see. Jason watched as Paul said something to Olivia and made her laugh again, and he frowned. Paul was getting far too close to Olivia for his tastes. Olivia was far more comfortable with Paul than she was with him. Maybe that was a good thing. You didn't want a woman you were interested in to be that comfortable. The kind of interest he felt in her was not a comfortable thing. She claimed not to be naturally good at getting along with people, but did she see how she had become such an important part of that group in the weeks she'd been on the island? Ellie and she were almost like sisters. Angela was beginning to open up more and get a little less drunk and seemed to gravitate towards Olivia, too. As for him, well, he was besotted with her. He wanted her. There was no hiding that fact. He wanted to get Olivia alone. But there didn't seem to be much of a chance of doing that. For somebody who claimed not to be popular, she was rarely alone. Every time he tried to ask her out, she either changed the subject, or somebody else turned up. It was beginning to get infuriating. But he had a plan. Summer tourist season would start in a few days. That meant that the sleepy island would become a lot less sleepy and get a lot more life. He had been to this island before, information he hadn't shared with the rest of them. He hadn't shared much of himself with them, to be honest. Only Olivia had noticed that and been interested enough to bring it up with him. He knew where they could get the best crab cakes on the island. He also knew that Olivia was particularly fond of crab cakes. He didn't think that an evening out with the additional lure of crab cakes was something even Olivia could resist. Besides, he knew that she was interested in him. It was obvious that she was. She might have decided that she wanted to pretend that those kisses hadn't happened, but he knew they had, and he knew how he'd felt. He also knew how it had felt when she had called him when she needed help. He had wanted to protect her. And he had been ready to do whatever it took to protect her. No, he was not going to let this one go. Olivia might have underestimated him because he'd stopped trying to be alone with him for the last few days, but he hadn't. He was just waiting for the right time. And he saw the right time presenting itself when Olivia headed out to the terrace, alone, unnoticed by everybody except him. Finally, he could have a moment alone with her. And this time, she wasn't going to say no. He was sure of that. Olivia felt his presence even before she heard or saw him. It was hard not to. She was so aware of him whenever he was around. It was, to be quite honest, annoying. She was beginning to feel like a tuning fork that would start humming in his presence. She didn't like it. She didn't want to like it. There you are. She didn't turn around, even if she wanted to turn and drink him in, just look at him. Did he have any idea how good he looked that day? Just in jeans and a dark blue shirt, he looked like he could walk onto set and get a photo shoot done. Did he know that almost every nurse at the hospital had her eye on him? He probably did. He was not oblivious. Where else would I be? You've been avoiding me. I have not. All right, conceded Jason. You've been avoiding being alone with me. Olivia shrugged. There's no reason to be alone with you. Isn't there, Olivia? She didn't say anything. Dinner. Have dinner with me. I am having dinner with you, in a few minutes, she pointed out. Not that way. You know what I mean. Go out with me. Yes, like a date, Olivia. Go out with me, and I'll take you to the place that sells the best crab cakes on the island. Olivia hated knowing that even without the bait of crab cakes, she would have wanted to say yes. She'd been avoiding him, true. She had also been waiting for him to ask her out. What a bundle of contradictions she was being. No, don't come up with excuses. If you don't want to go out with me, say so, and I will leave you alone. I won't ask again. We'll be friends and that's all. I promise. But if you want to, then give it a chance. Finally, Olivia let herself turn around and look at him, really look at him. He was sincere about it, of course. And she did want to say yes. She did want to go out with him. She wanted to spend time alone with him, get to know him. There was no denying that. All right. Next week. Jason smiled. I was about to suggest that. See? Same wavelength. I'll let you know when. Before she could say anything more, he turned around and left, as quickly as he had come out there, and found her alone. She smiled to herself. So, it was a date. That smile on Olivia's face, well, it was a lovely smile, of course. Olivia had a lovely smile. But why was it there? It was a different smile. Learning everything about Olivia's expressions and mannerisms had become a hobby. All right, it was more than a hobby. It was a bit of an obsession. What was wrong with admitting that? There was nothing to be ashamed of. Olivia was special. Mine.
If you want more BWWM romances like this, please, my love, be sure to subscribe to the Romancely YouTube channel. I look forward to spending more time with you. Subscribe and let's make it happen. Chapter 6. Olivia felt terrible. Not telling Ellie about her date. Ellie was her friend. Ellie was her closest friend on the island. The only friend who was closer to her was Kara. So she told Kara instead, and felt like a thief, sneaking out to call Kara. She went claiming she needed a walk along the cliffs, and that was true enough, she did need the walk. Work had been fulfilling. Liza had crossed the 27-week mark and she was doing well, with no signs of preeclampsia. 2 more months and it would be fine. She was listening now, at least. The younger girls who'd come in for contraceptives had been given a safe sex and sex ed talk, and they seemed to have taken it well, too. People recognized her when she went grocery shopping with Ellie. Or maybe people recognized Ellie, who was hard to miss, and recognized her as the woman who was usually with Ellie. And they stopped and talked to her. She was beginning to belong there. The flowers in their garden were blooming. The herbs Ellie had planted were thriving. Even with absolutely no knowledge about anything to do with gardening, Olivia had managed to follow instructions and help. It made her feel as if it was their home. It was their home. The cottage felt like home. So it was only right that she call her best friend, who was also her home. Kara picked up on the second ring. So she wasn't in the middle of a project. Ah, so you haven't forgotten me. Not yet, but if you don't call me for this long again, I might. Olivia chuckled. Sorry, it's just been a bit crazy. You know, if it's busier and crazier in NYC, I'm just so glad that I didn't go there. I would have gone utterly insane. I hear that's not uncommon. No, Caleb, I am not going to help you mince the garlic. Last time I did, you told me that I didn't mince it small enough. So this time, you can do it yourself. Olivia laughed. So he's still being an ass? He's always an ass, but I love him. Not enough to mince that mound of garlic for him, only to be told it's not done well, though. Good for you, you're beginning to stand up to him. I know. I'm learning how to get around all his lawyerly tricks. So, what's summer like on the island? It's just started. The difference, it was so sleepy and almost quiet until just a couple of weeks ago. But suddenly, all the cabins along the beach and in the woods are ready to be rented out, and people are coming in. There used to be a dozen cars on the ferry across every day. But now there are so many. Schools haven't closed for the summer yet, and there are so many people already. It's really beautiful, though. It's like a competition. Everybody tries to make their houses the best-looking one. The gardens are gorgeous. And there's a local artists group that does street art and graffiti. Some really lovely stuff you would like. I have a garden with a few flowers. Can you believe it? You? A garden? Olivia heard the skepticism and she did not blame Kara for it at all. I know, it's hard to believe, isn't it? Credit goes to Ellie, really. My roommate, the obstetrics resident. You'd like her too. She looks like this tough biker girl. Well, I suppose she is a tough biker girl. If anybody damaged her Harley in any way, she would probably tie them into a butterfly knot. But see, it would be a butterfly knot. She's so bright and bubbly, and she loves cooking and gardening. Talking about smashing stereotypes. I'm glad you've settled in well, V. Now tell me about the guy. What guy? I know how you sound and how you ramble when there's a guy. There was a pause as they both thought of Aaron, the bastard who had cheated on her, blamed her for it, shattered her confidence, and then dumped her. Damn him. It's not like there's a guy like that. I'm just going on a date this evening. That's all. A date? That doesn't sound serious. He's taking me out to dinner, and we're apparently going to have the best crab cakes on the island. He knows you. Kara sounded surprised. Well, it's an island. Everybody knows who likes seafood and who doesn't. It's no big deal. Really? Then why did you call me to talk about him? Sounding nervous about it. I do not and did not sound nervous, protested Olivia. So you don't deny the rest. Come on, V. It's me. I always know. Olivia sighed. That was true, too. I didn't. Well, see, the thing is, we had a clam bake a few weeks ago. It was fun. And, well, it turns out that sometime during the evening we went for a walk and, well, we kissed. And nothing. We kissed. You kissed a few weeks ago, and then nothing. I've kind of been avoiding him a bit. Well, I've been avoiding being alone with him. I guess I haven't been running away every time I see him, except that time in medical supplies. She'd hidden in the closet when she'd seen him coming, and stayed there, hoping to goodness she wouldn't sneeze because of course her nose started tickling right then. It had been one of the more mortifying moments of her life. Well, have fun, and be careful, V. Don't jump into anything you're not ready for. Remember where you are. The island. The outpost. I mean emotionally, and you know it. I don't want to see you get hurt again. I don't want to get hurt again, either, said Olivia. And they talked a bit more. About Kara's new project and work. Before she hung up, feeling much better. Talking to Kara always made her feel better. At least now she didn't feel like she was carrying a secret inside. One that she couldn't afford to tell anybody because it would. It would make things messy in the workplace. All the reasons why she hadn't wanted to have a relationship with somebody at the hospital still stood. This was just a date. They were just going to have dinner together. They all had dinner at Paul's place all the time. Ellie had been talking about how they should host everybody at the cottage, too, and that sounded great to Olivia, especially since she'd found out that Paul had actually been worried enough to go looking for her. Despite being the host, when she'd gone missing at the clam bake, Olivia shivered. It felt like somebody had walked over her grave. She felt like she was being watched. Instinctively, she turned around. She'd walked much farther than she had intended to. She could see the woods from where she was. The woods, she had found out, were not that far from the cottage. They were actually pretty close. Ellie and she had gone for a walk there once, with Olivia determined to get past her jitters. But it had made her feel as if she was being watched. Ellie, surprising nobody, was also an accomplished hiker and loved walking, and had already explored quite a few walking paths in the woods. She'd even found shortcuts to Paul's apartment, though Ellie had put her foot down there. If they weren't going on the bike, they would go in her Jeep. Ellie had offered to give Olivia a few lessons on the bike, and she'd been considering accepting that offer. 2. The woods were not dangerous. There were no dangerous animals in there. Nobody who'd got lost in there in the last 2 decades had stayed lost. People went there for hikes all the time. There was no reason for her to be jittery. And yet, they looked forbidding and dangerous to her. She looked at the woods and felt eyes staring back at her. What a morbid imagination you have, Olivia. She'd hoped that the sound of her own voice would make her feel steadier, but she sounded so shaky. Her voice sounded tinny to her own ears. Swiftly, Olivia turned around, though she felt unreasonable fear when she exposed her back to the woods, and she walked away, as fast as she could, much faster than she'd got there. She didn't care if it wasn't rational. She needed to get out of there. Olivia walked home, to safety and welcoming warmth, leaving the strange foreboding behind. Or so she wanted to believe. The smile was amused. So, Olivia was running away. Who could blame her? The woods were scary. They were dark and deep. They were meant for those who knew themselves and accepted themselves for who they were. Most people did not like confronting what they had inside, what they were capable of, the depths to which they could stoop and the heights to which they could rise. That, of course, was their loss. The biggest reason so many people failed to achieve what they desired the most, in the most secret of their hearts, was that lack. They failed to see what was in themselves. They failed to reach out, grasp, and take. Once you're comfortable with yourself, you could be comfortable anywhere, even in the woods, dark and deep as they were. You could relish it, even embrace it. But something was going on. Olivia was keeping a secret. The smile vanished. Eyes narrowed. No, secrets could not be allowed. Watching Olivia until she was out of sight was habit, and one that would not be broken. Soon, Olivia would be in sight all the time. Soon. Olivia met him at the post office because she refused to let him come home and pick her up, obviously. He was already waiting for her. "You're early," she told him, before he turned his eyes on her and her brain scrambled a bit, making her lose her words. "You're stunning." Olivia's brain cells had been zapped so hard that she had to look down at herself to remind herself what she was wearing. Ah, yes, a sunny yellow summer dress because it was finally summer and warm enough to enjoy it, though she did wear a shrug with it because she was sensible and knew what the breeze could be like on the island. "Thanks." She managed to get the word out. He looked stunning, too. The shirt was the color of the summer sky, and the white jeans should have looked silly on him, but they looked wonderful. They made his legs look long and strong. "My car is outside." She smiled, nodded, and would have followed him. But he took her hand, as if it was the most normal thing in the world to just hold her hand and walk down the street to where he'd parked the car. Her fingertips tingled, then her whole hand, her arm, as she walked beside him. His thumb moved, stroking her hand a little, and she sighed as a small shock of pleasure shot through her. She could get used to this. She ought to be careful about that. "I thought we might do something fun before dinner." "What?" "Well, how do you feel about golf?" Olivia frowned. "What? Golf? I didn't know there was golf on the island. I didn't know there was a golf course." "There's a golf course." "Yes, of course," he told her with a grin, and he shifted his car into gear and set off. "Really? I thought I knew the island pretty well. I didn't see it marked on any of the maps." "It's odd that it wasn't marked on the maps, isn't it?" "I'm sure it's marked. You probably didn't know what to look for." "What are you supposed to look for?" "A golf course should be marked as a golf course. What else?" He pulled into a parking lot, and her frown deepened. This was definitely not a golf course. It wasn't nearly swanky enough, and anyway. "Mini golf." Jason grinned at her. "See? Told you the island had golf. The only kind of golf that counts." Olivia had to laugh. "And a good thing, too. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm about the same height as most golf clubs." Jason guffawed, a sound full of such enjoyment that Olivia had to laugh again. Felt good to do that, to laugh with him like that. Careful, she warned herself. She had to be careful. She couldn't let herself get in too deep. "We'll get you miniature golf, then." "Come on, Olivia. Prepare to be destroyed." Olivia rolled her eyes at him, but it was hard not to get swept along. And it was nice to take an evening to just not worry about anything. Not about her work, not about imaginary threats in the woods, nothing. She let him pay because he insisted, and she wasn't surprised to find that she was having fun. It was fun to be with him, and he was competitive, she realized quickly, which made it better. So was she. "You dumbass double-dipper of a windmill. I will defeat you. I will vanquish you," she threatened as she hit the ball, and she stood there, bouncing on the balls of her feet, only to groan in frustration when the windmill knocked it away again. "It's your timing. It's off. I'd offer to help you, which I believe is the whole point of mini-golf dates. But I'm afraid I'm not nice enough to help the competition. I wouldn't take your help. You'd sabotage me, most likely." "I absolutely would," agreed Jason, making her chuckle again. She glared at him and decided to play dirty. She waited until he was in position and had begun to swing when she yodeled. He missed the ball and kicked it instead. "What the hell? It's the timing, Jason. You should get it right," she told him smugly as she watched his ball roll into the water trap that had 3 plastic frogs in it. "Well, I guess it's my turn." Jason glowered at her, but she was prepared for his distraction as she swung. And this time, she whooped triumphantly as her ball went past the windmill, through the tunnel, and finally got to the grinning mouth that opened and closed ominously. She held her breath and waited, but it was done. She had won that round. "Yes," she crowed, doing a little victory jig. "You play dirty," he accused, but most appreciatively. "I play to win," she informed him, and he laughed. "You know, this is not an appealing side of you at all." "I know, but I love it. Now come on. I guess this means that dinner is on me. You didn't tell me we were playing for that." "Well, I play dirty too. But you won, so." He grabbed her hand, pulled her to him until she was pressed against him, and smiled at her. "You get the win. Do I get a kiss?" "Jason." "Not excuses. I want to kiss you, Olivia. I've been dreaming of kissing you, touching you, for weeks. You've been ducking out of sight every time I manage to get you alone. I want you. You have no idea how much I want you." When had she stopped breathing? She couldn't breathe, but she didn't care, because she wanted his lips on hers more than she wanted her next breath. "Jason, say it. Kiss me. Kiss me now." She didn't get to finish the words before his mouth covered hers in a long, passionate kiss that left her in no doubt that he had missed her, that he wanted her as much as she wanted him. "Jason," she whispered against his lips, breathless as she shuddered in pleasure. His lips were firm and sure as he stroked hers. His tongue was demanding as he slipped it between her lips, licked along her teeth before sliding along her tongue to make her shudder again. When he finally lifted his head, his eyes were darker and his hair was mussed from her hands. "I missed you. I missed that, Olivia." She didn't know what might have happened next if a bunch of teenagers hadn't started hooting. Laughing, a little embarrassed, they let go of each other and walked back to the car. But he didn't let go of her hand even if he let go of the rest of her. "So, where are we going for those famous crab cakes?" asked Olivia, breaking the silence and the tension that simmered between them. "It's a secret until we get there." "Close to the beach," she guessed. "Easy guess," he countered, and he drove. She stopped trying to guess and sat back, trying to get her heart to settle back down, trying to get her body to stop pushing her to lean towards him and kiss him again. And again. She didn't think she would ever get enough of him. "Oh, I didn't know there was a restaurant here. It's more like a boardwalk bar, but it's got the best crab cakes I've ever had. Come on." Olivia smiled, told herself to stop making so much out of it, and walked with him to the bar. It didn't look particularly remarkable, but the lights were pretty, the music was upbeat but not loud enough to drown out the sound of the sea, and they could watch the sunset from there. Jason got them a table, ordered crab cakes and beer for both of them, and took her hand from across the table in a casual gesture that seemed intimate, as if they'd sat like that, holding hands, so many times before. "Let me just lay my cards on the table here, Olivia. I want you to come home with me after dinner." "What?" "I want you to come home with me. I want you to spend the night with me." "Jason, that's..." "No, hear me out. We don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Ever. That stands forever. I want you to come home with me because I don't want the evening to end. I don't want to drive you back and watch you walk away tonight. I want this to be perfect. The only way it could be perfect is if it ended with you in my arms. Even if all I do is hold you and watch you fall asleep." "You don't mean that." "Why not?" "Of course I mean it. I don't say things I don't mean." "Ah, here's our food and our beer." As if he hadn't just told her all of that. He charmed the waitress who obviously knew him and glanced at her jealously, making her wonder just how he knew her. No, she wouldn't be jealous and she wouldn't think about things like that. It was none of her business. He could be with whomever he pleased. He was a free man just like she was a free woman. But when he turned back to her, there was no embarrassment. There were no secrets. "Try it and tell me if I was right." So she did, and she closed her eyes in sheer pleasure. "Oh my God. Oh my. We've got to come here, all of us." Ellie would go nuts for this and Paul would pester them for the recipe and Angela would pout about how much she's eating but eat it anyway. Jason laughed. "We will. I wanted it to be just the two of us this time. Do you mind?" Olivia shook her head. "Olivia, I want to keep seeing you. Olivia's eyes flew open, and she chewed furiously and swallowed, making him laugh. Sorry. Wrong time. Huh. You mean like, you want us to date each other? We're on a date. We're having fun. I think we are dating each other. No, you know what I mean. I mean that I want to date you, and only you if that's what you want as well. We've been on one date. You want us to be exclusive already? Why? Are you dating somebody else? He asked that casually, but she had a feeling that if she said yes, he wouldn't take it quite so casually. No, but we work together. It will get messy and complicated. Like life. But we still live. Jason, I don't want this to be gossiped about. I don't like being talked about, pointed at, laughed at. I don't want. All right? Interrupted Jason. I don't care what anybody else thinks, but if you say so. But this is nobody else's business but ours. Is that what you want? Is this what we have, what you want? Asked that direct question, what choice did she have but to be honest? Yes.
Chapter 7. Take a walk with me. She smiled and nodded, and this time, she wasn't surprised when he took her hand and walked beside her, as if they'd done that for a lifetime. She wasn't surprised when he slipped an arm around her and tucked her hand into his pocket, either. It felt right. Maybe they had done this together, a lifetime ago. When they finally got back to the car, he pulled her close and smiled at her. Come home with me. I don't want the evening to be over. It's a miracle neither of us has been paged, even if we are off. I know. Ellie is at the hospital. You could drop me home. I know. But come home with me, Olivia. Olivia smiled and nodded because she wanted to. And she knew that she wasn't going home with him to spend the night being chastely held in his arms. She was going home with him because she wanted him. She wanted to know where it would go, how much more she could feel when he kissed her and didn't have to stop. He held her hand when he drove. It wasn't the easiest thing to do when he was driving a stick shift, but he managed. Is this where you live? It's nice. Nicer than our places. Not as nice as your cottage, but yes, living in a condo does have its advantages. He smiled at her, making her heart beat a little harder again, and gave her a wicked little grin when they got the elevator to themselves. Kiss me. Olivia looked at him in surprise. It's your turn, don't you think? It was his cocky little smile that did it. She launched herself at him, trusting that he would catch her, wrapped her legs around him, and kissed him.
Hi there. Unfortunately, we've had to take this steamy scene out as it's against YouTube's terms of service.
If you don't want to miss out on love scenes in future stories, check the description and join the Romance Audiobook Insiders for more info.
Okay, back to the story.
She still held on to him, wondering if she would ever feel such intimacy again. Such perfect harmony with another person ever again. Even if she never did, it would have been worth it. Once was more than most people got, wasn't it? I'm not done with you. Not by a long shot. I'm just a little shaken. His candid admission made her heart tremble just a little bit more, alarming her again. No, she couldn't let that happen. That was not part of the deal. Smiling, she found those shields, and she put them up carefully, and she sat up, pulling away from him. I don't mean to ruin the moment, but I really need some water, Jason. He smiled easily and nodded. I'll get you water. She waited till he was out of the room before she wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to keep her heart still, and closed her eyes tightly. She had to get a grip. She'd slept with Jason on their first real date, and that was not something she'd thought she would ever do. But the way she felt, it was just a reaction. She was going to be fine. She opened her eyes, and it was sheer coincidence that her gaze happened to fall on a framed photo on his table. It looked familiar. She got to her feet, found Jason's shirt and pulled it on, realized she'd ripped off most of the buttons and shrugged. She'd sew them on or get him a new shirt. She walked to the table and looked at the photo. It was of a man and a woman getting an award from the president, obviously a big deal. Why was that on his table? She looked at the caption, "Representatives of the Southworth Charitable Foundation," it said. Southworth. Southworth, as in Jason Southworth. She read the rest of the caption. The two people were Loren and Mary Southworth, of Spade Absolute Technologies. That was when she did a double take. She noticed the similarities, finally. The man's eyes. The woman's determined chin. The woman's hair. The man's build. Jason's parents. That was the only explanation. Jason Southworth. Spade Absolute Technologies. She heard Jason come into the room. Here, Are you Jason Southworth, as in, billionaire and heir to Spade Absolute Technologies? Jason wrinkled his nose in distaste. Must you put it that way? I'm Dr. Jason Southworth, isn't that good enough? Yes, that's plenty good enough, but holy shit, Jason. You never told me. You never told anybody. Seriously? A billionaire? You're a fucking billionaire? Jason sighed, pulled her away from the framed photo, sat her down on the bed, and gave her the glass of water. I don't suppose I could distract you by making love to you and you can forget all about having seen that photo? No, you don't suppose. Holy shit, Jason, you lied to me. You pretended that. Olivia trailed off. That was, actually, not quite fair. He hadn't lied to her. He had just omitted certain parts of the truth. Maybe, by omission, but look, I don't know who your parents are, do I? So what does it matter if I didn't tell you who my parents are? But it's not just. I mean, you're rich. Well, yes. I am rich. So what? Olivia did see the point. It was none of her business. It was none of anybody else's business, really, just how rich he was. Nobody was required to tell anybody else about their parents' financial status. She hadn't told everybody that her parents were both doctors, for one thing, and it wasn't because she wanted to hide it. It just changed how people looked at you if they knew you were following in your parents' footsteps. As if your own achievements weren't worth enough. Sorry. It was just a shock. It's not the kind of thing you expect to find out. You're right, you're Jason Southworth, and they're your parents. Your parents don't have anything to do with your choices. Jason sighed, sat down, and shook his head. Maybe that's not. It's not really. Well, my family thinks that this is a phase. She took a sip of water because she really was parched, and tried not to gape around her at the bedroom. She'd never been inside a billionaire's living space before. To be honest, Jason's apartment was not lavish. Sure, it was bigger than Paul's or Angela's, and though she and Ellie lived in a cottage that probably was about the same in floor space, they shared the place. It was definitely not the kind of extravagance she would have associated with the billionaire class. What's a phase? Being a doctor. Olivia choked on the water hard enough that Jason thumped her on the back and looked a little worried. Her eyes watered. Don't look at me, I look stupid, she managed to spit out in the middle of choking. Please try not to be such an idiot. Are you all right? Can you breathe? Of course I can breathe. You're a doctor, you can see that. Even without a medical degree, that should be evident. She cleared her throat a few times and felt better, and finally managed to get her incredulous question out. Your parents think that going to medical school is a phase? How? How is that a phase? Dyeing your hair blue is a phase, though for Ellie it's a phase that leads from pink to green. How is going to med school a phase? Jason shrugged. I was expected to go into spade, take over, you know, that kind of thing. That was what I was expected to do. I was good at everything in school. It came easily to me. Well, my parents, they are geniuses, it was bound to rub off on their child, I suppose. It's genetics, isn't it? I was going along with the plan, too, but then I went to college early. I graduated high school 2 years early and skipped a year of college, and I just had a phase and decided to do pre-med? I guess. So after that you went to med school and your parents still think that was a phase? Do they know what med school is like? Well, sure, they fund programs including med schools, but they still think that. I don't know how to explain, really. I mean, everything comes easily to them. Learning is easy for me, too. So they think that when I'm done learning, I'll just give up on being a doctor and go and do what I'm supposed to do. They're very indulgent about it. Indulgent? Better than cutting me off and things like that, right? But Jason, you're an excellent doctor. Not just that, you're going to be an excellent pediatrician. You're good at neonatal care, too. You could choose either of those and you would be one of the best in the country. How can they think that's a phase? It's a vocation. How are they not proud of you? Jason laughed, but it was the first time that she'd heard him laugh and sound so much less than happy. It's not that they're not proud of me. They're proud of how good I am at my phase. They just don't understand that this is something I have to do. Well, they're being terribly short-sighted and not understanding at all, then. I don't like your parents, declared Olivia furiously. Jason looked at her, a little surprised. Really? Well, I mean. Yes, really. Really. I wouldn't embarrass you if they came here and I met them or something, but I don't like them, and until they understand how important this is to you and how it's very real and not just something you're going to grow out of, I don't like them either. Jason sighed a little. Do you know something? I don't think anybody has ever gotten so mad about this before. What? You must have gotten mad about it. If I were you, I'd be mad about it. It's not that easy. My parents don't mean to make me feel bad. It's not about what they mean, it's about what they do. And if they don't understand after this long, then they're not trying hard enough. They must be trying pretty hard to stick to their own point of view. That must be harder than just accepting what you say about yourself. No, nobody has ever gotten this mad at anybody on my behalf. I like it. I definitely like it. And I like how you look in my shirt. I think I like everything about this moment. If I could pick one moment to freeze forever, I think it might be this one. Olivia shook her head, still angry at the thought of how much it must have hurt to have his dream and his vocation brushed aside so casually, as if completely inconsequential. It must have hurt, of course it must have hurt. Olivia decided to send her own parents some flowers. They never did anything of the sort to her, not even when she was trying to figure out whether she wanted to be a ballerina or a doctor. They'd never pushed her. After hearing of Ellie's family, and now Jason's, he was more grateful of hers than ever before. You deserve better, Jason. I don't care how rich they are. You deserve better. And her heart trembled a little again. It was late. It was very late. It was infuriating to keep checking the time, but it was definitely almost 3. Olivia was not back. She was not home. bitch, slut, whore. This was unacceptable.
Hey there. Did you know that we've other hot romances like this that we want to release? But we need your help. Subscribing shows us that you're part of our journey and allows us to make more of these stories at a higher quality. So please, my queen, subscribe to the Romancely YouTube channel now. Thanks. Now back to your story. Chapter 8. Sorry, Paul, not tonight. Paul frowned. But you didn't come 2 nights ago either. You weren't on shift then. Olivia grinned. Well, now you've been tracking my shifts, Paul? What would Ellie say? Paul blushed a little. It's not like I was looking for it. Your name was right above mine, Leggett, Martinez. And Ellie and I are friends. We like cooking together. It's not like that. I was kidding, Paul. But I need to catch up on some work tonight, so I'll just be having a sandwich at my desk. Oh, cool. I'll come over and we can work together, Livy. Olivia tried not to sigh as Angela turned up and invited herself. She'd been doing that a lot lately. It had been fine to begin with, but now that Olivia was trying to find ways to get away from the group and spend time with Jason as often as she could, because she missed him when she wasn't with him, yet another thing to make her heart tremble. It was becoming a bit of a pain. Thanks, Angela, but maybe next time. I really need to get this done, and you're too much fun. I can't get work done with you around. She thought she'd handled that well. Olivia walked away from the break room after changing to do her rounds with Dr. Hart, and she was pretty sure that she could get away and spend the night with Jason. It was getting a bit annoying to have to hide it, but she was still not ready to have it be known. She wanted to make sure that she did it on her terms. Besides, she knew from experience how quickly things could change. She knew how quickly a relationship could go sour. If their relationship went downhill, the thought filled her with dread, but she was trying to be practical. Then she was not going to make her friends take sides. Olivia frowned when she felt something in the pocket of her white coat. She usually cleared out her pockets at the end of every shift because she wrote notes to herself and stuffed them in the pocket when she was too tired to remember them properly. Leaving redundant notes in the pocket screwed up her system. Sure enough, it was a note. That was funny. She'd thought that she had cleared her pockets. She was pretty sure she had. She checked and saw that it wasn't one of her own notes. She usually used her post-its to leave herself notes. This was something different. Still, she didn't expect anything strange as she unfolded it and read it, and her world went gray. Bitch, I know what you're doing and you will pay. Stop now or I'll make you pay. It had to be a mistake. It had to be a bad joke of some kind. Couldn't be meant for her. Couldn't be. But it was in her pocket, and it had her name on the front. Olivia. She turned to see Jason walking towards her. She should have stuffed the note back in her pocket and pretended that everything was fine. Maybe, but she was so shocked that she couldn't think. He took one look at her face, one look at her hand, and took the note neatly from her hand. What's this? Olivia shook her head as he read it. Olivia, who gave you this? Who wrote this? It's not signed, so how would I know? Do you think maybe a pro-lifer got in and was slipping notes into all the OB-GYN staff's pockets? Maybe, but we would have heard about it if that was so. And this is addressed to you, specifically. She nodded. This was specifically about her. This was not a random note to everybody. This was personal. Olivia, come with me. We need to tell security about this. But Olivia shook her head. Liza is coming for her ultrasound today. I have to go. Besides, what can the security do? They're not Sherlock Holmes. They won't be able to tell anything from this. The police, then. It's probably just a silly joke of some kind. I don't think. This is a threat, Olivia. What are you going to do? Just ignore it? Do you think it will just go away if you ignore it? It's not. I'm not doing that. I don't think there's anything to worry about. This is probably nothing. Maybe it's a patient who's a bit stressed out. It's addressed specifically to you, Olivia. Come on, you know that ignoring it and hoping it will go away on its own is not a good option. You know that. Things don't work that way. They do sometimes. Look, it's just a note. It's fine. Whatever, if there's a second note, then we can tell somebody. This is just a one-off. All right, now I've got to go. Did you hear that there's a hurricane warning? It's 3 days out, it says, but it sounds like it's not going to be very bad. It's not a big one, but we'll still probably have a lot of wind and rain and problems with power. Have you stocked up on candles and batteries and canned food? I have to. Olivia frowned at him. Of course you do, that's basic stuff you do when there's a hurricane warning. You get non-perishables, you get clean water, and you get a lot of light and fire things. And then you hope to heavens that everything will be fine. Ellie and I are thinking of having people over so we can ride it out together. The forecast doesn't predict anything worse than a few fallen trees and a lot of rain, so we don't even have to worry too much. Unless a tree falls on the cottage, but Ellie's been out checking and she says that everything is fine. There are no trees to cause any damage to us. The sea will be pretty spectacular, too. What do you think? Want to come over? Sure, if we don't get stuck here, which seems likely. Olivia scrunched up her face. I've got hopes. If the forecast is accurate, there shouldn't be too many emergencies. This is an island. People know how to deal with storms. Yes, but we have tourists on the island now, so we have to be ready. Damn, I'd forgotten about the tourists. Well, great. Forget about the ocean watching party. Then, maybe we can. We'll see. And I know you were changing the subject, Olivia. I'm not giving up. She felt so much lighter after talking to Jason that she smiled. She didn't feel threatened anymore. She had believed her own explanation. She didn't feel eyes boring into her back, watching her. The wind is picking up. The hurricane changed course. We're not going to be affected any worse, but it's going to be sooner than expected. Everybody is expected to be here and on standby if you're not on shift. Understood? There will be emergencies and we will need all hands on deck. Olivia nodded. She caught Ellie's eyes and made a sad face, but Ellie grinned back at her. Angela looked as doll-like as ever. Paul looked like he was ready to ride out the storm. Jason was distracted. He was probably still worrying about that note, thought Olivia. She had wanted to throw it away, but Jason had insisted that she keep it. She'd thought it was excessive. It had been 3 days since then and nothing had happened. Of course, she hadn't been able to sneak away and spend time with Jason, either. It had just been too hectic. Liza had crossed the 30-week mark, and there had been no more complications. It looked like it would work out just great. She looked happy, and Bud looked happy but terrified. All was as it should be, decided Olivia. Olivia had assisted Dr. Hart in 2 surgeries for removal of cysts from ovaries. Dr. Hart had been full of praise. Well, praise for her. She'd said, good job. And both patients were recovering well. Jason had been part of a vaccination seminar and had had to deal with a few people who had been vacillating about vaccinating their children. But he had managed to sway them with his words and his charm. That was another thing Jason was very good at, talking people around to his point of view, which was also why he was so annoyed that she was standing firm and not reporting the note. They were on a roll. They could handle a hurricane, too, if they had to. Olivia was full of beans as she went through her day. She made sure that the medical supply closets were stocked to take them through potential emergencies. She made sure that the nurses and orderlies would be in and would be able to work. She felt at home. She had noticed that Dr. Hart was leaving her with more and more responsibility, and she appreciated it. She appreciated how the older woman pushed her hard at the clinic as well. She'd caught a few problematic cases, one that might have developed into cancer at the screenings they'd done. She knew that she was becoming accepted as one of the people there. The island really was becoming home. When the hurricane hit, earlier than anybody expected even with the latest warnings, she was still sure that they could handle it all just fine. Until Liza was brought in, screaming. Rain lashed outside, drenching Liza and Bud. She's having contractions. We can't stop them. We tried everything you told us to document. We can't stop them. Right? Said Dr. Hart, taking charge and snapping out orders. This time, Liza didn't respond to treatment. Olivia worked hard, getting her changed out of her wet clothes, taking the time to get somebody to get scrubs for Bud to change into. Their baby preparation hospital bag was soaked. The wind was so strong that she could hear it even inside the hospital. She had to block all of it out. Her water broke. I think the baby is coming now. Bud looked like he might have hysterics. We need to do a C-section. Do you hear me? Bud? Liza? We need to do it because it would be safest. We have neonatal on standby. It's going to be fine. Your baby has an excellent chance of doing just great. We've been preparing for this. You have to trust us. Do you hear me? You have to trust us and let us do our jobs. We will do it well. Olivia knew exactly what Dr. Hart needed. They had the OR prepped and ready to go. They scrubbed up and went in, and Ellie was there, assisting as well. The fetal heart rate is fine. Liza's vitals look good. Let's get this done. Is neonatal ready? And waiting. It's fine. We can do this. So they worked, fast and efficient. They were 20 minutes into the surgery when a nurse came to Olivia. Dr. Leggett, there's an emergency. Female 18. Complaints of very bad pain in the abdomen. Demands to see you. Me? One of the girls from your contraception class. I'm in the middle of surgery here. You can go, Leggett. Liza and Rose are in good hands. This is going well so far. Olivia hesitated, but she left, wondering what was going on. She saw the girl waiting for her. It was already getting a bit crowded and a little less controlled out in the emergency. Nothing seemed particularly bad. There was nobody with missing limbs or serious head trauma, at least, but there were plenty of people who needed stitches. Olivia spotted her patient sitting in a corner, on a rickety chair, as if trying to separate herself from everybody else. She sat there almost doubled over in pain. Olivia racked her brains for the name. Nikki. That was it. Nikki? Dr. Leggett. Dr. Leggett, it hurts. It hurts so much. I think I'm going to die. Hey, come on, you're definitely not going to die tonight. I won't allow it, for one thing. Come on, let's get you into an exam room, and I'm pregnant. What? I didn't get my period last week. I bought a pregnancy test. I don't know what it means. Look. The girl reached into a pocket of her voluminous hoodie and brought out a pregnancy test. This is a very faint positive. Could be a false positive. It hurts. It hurts so much, Dr. Leggett. Please make it stop hurting. Make it. Olivia quickly checked her eyes and noticed that she was far too pale. She was too cold, too. I need to get you in for a scan, all right, Nikki? It's going to be fine. It was hard to find enough people to help. So she grabbed a wheelchair herself, got Nikki into it, and took her for her scan. The technician was there, thankfully. Dora, we have suspected internal bleeding and possible ectopic pregnancy here. We need a scan quickly. Dora was smart and efficient. She quickly had Nikki prepped and the wand ready. Dr. Leggett, I'm afraid. I know, sweetheart. This is going to be fine, though. You know how an ultrasound works, right? Well, we will have to do the transvaginal scan for you because you said you're only a couple of weeks late, right? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Well, then we won't be able to see anything much on the regular scan. We need a TVS. This will be a little uncomfortable, but I will be right here, all right? She nodded and reached for Olivia's hand with such trust that Olivia knew she had to do this herself. She couldn't leave this girl alone. She looked so young, much younger than her years. Deep breaths. Okay? She nodded and winced a little, but she was fine as she waited. All right, there's definitely something there. I need to do an internal exam, honey. All right? I just need a confirmation. Olivia pulled her gloves on and tried to be as reassuring as possible as she did the exam. Shit, that was a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. The embryo had implanted in the left fallopian tube instead of in the uterus, and it had ripped the fallopian tube open. There was definite internal bleeding. She needed surgery immediately. Dora, I'm getting it ready now. We'll move her to pre-op and prep her for surgery there. Thanks, Dora. Dr. Hart. Still in with Liza. She'll take time. It's you, Dr. Leggett. Shit. She nodded. Dr. Leggett? Dr. Leggett, what's happening? I'm afraid I want Mike. He dumped me. He said he would dump me if I didn't have sex with him, and he didn't want to use a condom. He said it didn't feel good for him if he used one. And I told him you said the pill won't start working for 7 days, and he said it would be fine. I know, honey. Listen, what about your parents? No, you can't tell them. They will kill me. Olivia backed up. What? They make me wear a purity ring. They'll kill me. Please, Dr. Leggett. Please. This was an emergency surgery. She needed a consent form signed. You are 19, aren't you? She nodded. Graduating high school in a few months? She nodded again, tears running down her cheeks. Don't cry, honey. We'll handle this. I promise we'll handle this. You'll be fine. You're going to be just fine. Now look, this is going to be a little complicated, but there's paperwork. I need you to sign the consent forms and then I need to get you into surgery. This is what has happened. Olivia explained as simply as possible, trying to reassure herself, too. She hadn't done this before. She had only assisted. But there was nobody else and this needed to be done. She was losing blood. She was losing too much blood. It had to be done as soon as possible. Olivia hoped against hope, even as Nikki was getting prepped and being rolled into the OR, that Dr. Hart would come. But she didn't. Liza went into shock. They're working on her. The anesthesiologist told her. She had to put it out of her mind. She had to have faith and put it out of her mind. All right, then I have to do this. Nikki was told to count backwards from 10, and soon it was time. All right, making the incision. She trusted her training and worked as quickly and as steadily as she could. She was right, of course. The diagnosis had been straightforward. The damage was too bad to try to save the fallopian tube. But the bleeding was controlled quickly. Olivia felt herself find that steady place that was almost like a zen-like state as she worked. She was focused, aware of everything, and completely under control. Stitching up, she said finally, and she did that too. Vitals were steady. Her blood pressure was normal again. She was no longer pale. She hadn't needed a transfusion. Thank heavens for that. She had done it. She had saved her first life. It was done. Move her to recovery. Monitor her. Let me know if there's any change. Good work, Dr. Leggett. She smiled, finally. Nikki is going to be fine. She will need a few days of rest. But I'm glad we could do it without opening her up. It's just 3 small incisions to worry about. She won't have any trouble hiding that from her parents. I know her parents. They would probably kill her if they found out, said the nurse. Then it's a good thing nothing went wrong and we don't have to tell them anything. I'll make sure she has access to counseling, too. She needs to dump that loser boyfriend of hers, Mike, she said. He is just like her parents. Nikki has applied for scholarships. She wants to get out of here. My sister is one of Nikki's friends. She'll have support. Olivia nodded. But she was only half listening now, because Liza... How was Liza? Rose is in neonatal. Jason took her about 2 hours ago. She's fine. She's in the incubator, but she's fine. Her lungs and heart are both healthy. She will need care, of course. She will have to stay here for a few weeks. Liza! She went into shock during surgery. Dr. Hart pulled her back. She's getting sewn up now. She's going to be fine. Oh, thank heavens. Thank heavens for that. She's going to be fine. They're both going to be fine. You were in there for a few hours. You should get some rest, Dr. Leggett. You did great. Olivia smiled, thanked the nurse, and she tried to take her advice. But she couldn't. She couldn't rest. She was too full of energy. She had done it. It had been her first time flying solo, and she had done it. She had done a great job. She had done the diagnosis quickly. She had made the decisions that needed to be made, and she had done everything that she had to do. It was a rush. It was a huge rush. She needed to talk to somebody who knew. Everybody would be in emergency, of course, dealing with whatever came in. Olivia tried calling Kara, but there was no answer. Busy, she supposed, but she couldn't rest. She couldn't relax. She needed. Where was Jason? She needed to talk to him. She needed him. She tried calling him, but there was no answer either. Olivia considered going down to emergency and working a while longer, but if they needed her, they would page her. She considered going to neonatal and seeing how Rose was doing. But that wasn't what she needed to do either. She needed to share this feeling, this triumph. Adrenaline was still pumping through her. She needed to calm down. No, she needed to ride the wave. The wind had picked up outside. It was clearly audible as she finally headed towards the break room. It got louder and louder as she got closer to it. Obviously, the building was not as well insulated in the staff areas. That was fine. She was riding a high, she realized. She would crash soon, but for the moment she was riding a high and she needed Jason. She needed his hands on her. She needed to have him show her how much he wanted her, because she had saved a life, and she had done it on her own. With some help, of course. She opened the door to the break room and heard thunder crashing. So loud it was all around her. There was somebody already there. Jason. Well, that was handy.
Chapter 9. Olivia pulled her scrubs off and climbed into the bunk bed beside Jason, pressing her voluptuous body against his. She stroked his hair and spooned him, her hands sneaking under his shirt to stroke his chest. Oh no, another love scene had to be taken out due to YouTube's policies.
If you haven't already, join the Romance Audiobook Insiders to learn how to get love scenes in future.
Link to join is in the description. Pause this and do that.
It's okay, we'll wait.
Signed up?
Good, now back to the story.
Did we break the bunk bed? Olivia chuckled sleepily. I don't think so. We'd be on the floor if we did. I think we made some noise, though. Good thing the hurricane drowns it all out, huh? Yeah, sure. Thank heavens for the hurricane, said Jason sardonically, making her giggle again. And you don't care if anybody walks in and finds you in bed with me like this? Oh. Well, maybe I do. Actually, I do, I really do. She sat up, only to be tugged down into his arms again. Too late. How about round 2? She giggled and sat up again, managed to get out of bed and pull her scrubs back on. I think maybe I'll have a shower. A shower, yes, that sounds good. Great, I'll join you. No, you won't. I'll come and find you when I need you again, she told him, and left him there as she grabbed a towel and hopped into one of the tiny white cubicles to take a quick shower. Jason looked around and chuckled. Well, that had been a surprise. That woman of his was full of surprises. He didn't know what had brought that on, but he wasn't complaining. He could only hope to have more of it. More of her. He wanted more of her. He would have more of her. She would be his. Where was Olivia Leggett? That was the question. Oh, there were plenty of places where she could be. Looking in all of those places didn't take much time. There was the department lounge, the OR, the ER, the clinic, the exam rooms, the break room, the showers. Olivia had once said that it was hard for her to sleep when there was a storm raging. Well, there was definitely a storm raging. So deciding to check the break room last was a logical decision. But that's when Olivia came out, her scrubs on backwards, giggling, her eyes glowing. Of course, doing a surgery solo like that was a huge accomplishment, and of course it should make Olivia's eyes glow with pride and happiness. But that wasn't it there. Of course it wasn't. It didn't take long. Jason came out soon after, a little flushed, that same glow in his eyes. No. No, that was not acceptable. Happiness turned into jealous rage. Paper crinkled in the hand that clenched to a fist. A pen, a pencil, the letter needed editing. There would be no gushing congratulations for Olivia. There was no pen, no pencil. Blood would do. Blood, because of Olivia. For Olivia. A promise, written in blood. Literally. When Olivia felt the note in her pocket, she frowned again, and this time, her blood ran cold. Once could be a joke, a very bad joke, a prank. But twice was not a joke. Twice was the beginning of a pattern. Twice was an indication of real danger. The storm still raged outside, effectively trapping her inside the hospital. But there were so many people there. She had friends there. She would be fine. She would not be made to feel unsafe like that. She refused. But she needed space to check this new note. A supply closet was the only thing she could come up with, so she went inside and with trembling fingers brought the note out and opened it. She took a deep breath and told herself that it would be fine, that it was all right, and opened the note. By the light of her phone, she read it. The first part was crossed out, scribbled over. There were hearts and flowers all over it. The second part was that blood? Bitch, slut, you will pay, I'll make you pay. Her head swam. There was so much hatred in that. A promise to make her pay, written in blood. Whoever was doing this was insane. And Jason was right. She did need to tell somebody, make a complaint of some sort. She was trapped in a hospital, in the middle of a hurricane, with somebody who was clearly unbalanced and wanted to make her pay. Pay for what? She frowned and tried to read the scribbled out part of the letter. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. You did amazing today. She couldn't read the next few words, they'd been crossed out too viciously. I can't wait to make you happy. So, it had been a creepy, stalker-like congratulatory message from somebody who knew that she had accomplished something special that day. Then they had, what? Jealousy? Had they seen her with Jason? And then they had seen her with Jason and called her a slut and a bitch, and promised to make her pay. This was definitely serious, far more serious than she wanted to believe. There was no way she could handle this herself. Olivia leaned against the door and tried to calm down. She tried to control her own breathing, regulate her own heart rate. She should have done more yoga with Kara. She'd hated it. But Kara knew how to calm down and regulate heart rate. She didn't know. It took her a few minutes, when she was afraid that she might be falling apart. But she managed to get a hold of herself again. She managed to find herself again, and she managed to breathe through it. She had to do something. Hiding in the medical supplies closet forever was obviously not a solution. So she would go out there, she would find Jason, and she would tell him what was going on. She could trust him. She could, couldn't she? It couldn't be him. The suspicion only lasted a moment, but it was vicious and it was terrible. It couldn't be him. He hadn't known about her surgery until she told him, and he already congratulated her. Besides, he wasn't unbalanced and insane. She trusted him. She could tell him, and they would figure out what to do next. Together. That's how it was supposed to work, wasn't it? She was supposed to trust him. Olivia tried to put it out of her mind until she could get to Jason, and that was easy enough, considering that there was plenty of work to be done. The people coming into emergency had slowed to a trickle, but those who had come in needed care, and since those who were there were stuck there and those who weren't were stuck at home, people were flagging. Break rooms were beginning to get full. There would definitely not be any more sex in the break room until the skies cleared. Hey! This is something else, huh? Olivia smiled at Paul, but inside, she was wondering if it was Paul who was leaving her those damn notes. It couldn't be, could it? He had no reason to do so. He hadn't shown any undue interest in her. He'd been a friend. And extremely insistent that she go to dinner at his place whenever she could. Was that creepy? She couldn't decide. Are you all right? You look a little tired. I heard you did a ruptured ectopic pregnancy that needed a salpingectomy on your own. Congratulations. It's a big deal. He sounded so sincere. Surely she was making too much out of nothing. It couldn't be Paul. Yes, Dr. Hart said I done a good job. But she saved Liza, did you hear? She came in and I don't know what I would have done if Dr. Hart hadn't been there. Whatever was necessary, I'm sure. Jason said the baby, Rose, I hear, is doing fine, too. I think they might give her a middle name after Dr. Hart. It's the kind of thing Bud would think of. No, it really couldn't be Paul. She smiled. It is. You were swamped, I couldn't help much. Sorry about that. Well, things have calmed down a bit now. Nobody can come to the hospital right now, anyway. We're on generators, and phone lines are beginning to go down. When the roads are clear enough for driving, we'll see more people coming. I've never really dealt with this. A hurricane, I mean. It's not the kind of thing I've had to handle. You handled everything great, Olivia. So, celebratory dinner at my place? As soon as we can? I can whip up something pretty good from non-perishables, too, if I have to. I don't know, Paul. Things will probably be kind of crazy for a while. I wonder how the cottage is holding up. Ellie and I were working on making sure we didn't have any loose tiles, and we made sure the basement was as secure and watertight as we could make it, but I don't know. You and Ellie are the handiest people I know. I'm sure you did a great job. So stop changing the subject. We're celebrating, and that's that. Paul walked away, and Olivia wasn't so sure again. Paul did love hosting dinners, and ever since she and Jason had started making excuses, there hadn't been so many get-togethers and dinners. He couldn't possibly resent her enough to send her anonymous and violent letters, could he? No, that made no sense. But it didn't have to make sense to her for it to make sense to the letter writer. Their brain obviously worked differently. She supposed she could always ask. Livy! There you are. I was looking all over for you. Congratulations. Angela came up, all smiles, and Olivia changed her mind about asking Angela for her opinion. Goodness knew what it would be like if Angela knew of it. She would insist on tagging along everywhere for Olivia's protection, like a pint-sized bodyguard. No, definitely not. If anybody was to be told, it should be Ellie. Livy? Are you listening? I'll take you out when this is all done and we can celebrate. Ellie should come, too. We should have a girls' night. Oh, thanks, Angela. But I'm pretty sure it's going to take a while for things to start calming down. We can figure it all out then. We never hang out anymore, Livy. You're never there. It's not the same when you're not there. Ellie is obsessed with her stuff, and Paul always wants to cook. Nobody wants to go out and have fun anymore. I'm sure that's not true. Look, I'm being paged. It was with relief that Olivia got out of there and rushed to where she was necessary. Thankfully, there were no more life or death emergencies, the winds died down slowly, and the flooding was minimal. The beaches would need massive cleaning up. She was sure the entire community would turn out for it. And, well, so would she, because she was now a part of the community, too. Things look better now, said a voice, and Olivia smiled. Sure do, Ellie. You did an amazing job with Dr. Hart, with Liza and Rose. Mother and baby are both doing great. Dad might need more sedatives. Ellie chuckled. He might. He'll need all the sleep he can get while he can get it, anyway. You know, it was touch and go in there for a moment. We thought we might lose her. Dr. Hart is extremely skilled. Without her, Liza would have died on that table. You're lucky she has decided to mentor you, Olivia. It's going to go well for you. I guess I am lucky. Your Nikki is doing well, too. Does she need help? Shelter, supplies, anything of the sort? I don't know. I haven't asked. She has to stay here for a couple of days before we let her go with antibiotics, but I think she does need help. She begged me not to tell her family. Why do so many people have such terrible families? I feel like I won the lottery with mine. They're so great compared to yours, or hers. I think most families fall somewhere along the middle. They get some right, they get some wrong, but at a pinch they'll probably be there for each other. Like friends. Olivia poked Ellie in the ribcage, making her laugh. So serious, Ellie. Very unlike you. Hey, I can be serious when I want. I sure hope Harley is fine. You wrapped her up in tarp and put her in the living room, Ellie. I think Harley will be just fine. I hope so. She is my one true love. I do worry. Too bad I can't go home and check. Please, don't. Oh, look, there's Jason. Do you think there's bad news? He doesn't look like there's bad news. And neither do you. Olivia, are you and he having a thing? What? I've been meaning to ask for a while. I don't want to make a big deal out of it because you obviously don't want that, but you've been making a lot of excuses to avoid hanging out, and whenever you disappear, so does Jason. It's very odd, and it makes sense if you put the two of you together. It's not. Don't lie to me. Olivia was startled. That hadn't sounded like Ellie at all. There had been anger in that, real anger. No, she was not going to suspect Ellie. It was probably none of them. It was probably somebody else entirely, somebody else who worked at the hospital. There were so many people who worked there. It would take forever to narrow them all down. I wasn't lying. I just didn't want to mess up the group unless we decided to get serious and make it official. If we just had a fling and it ruined everything, what's the point? I just needed us to figure out what it was between us before we told anybody else. And have you? Not yet, so don't tell anybody, Ellie. But that was a lie. She recognized that as a lie, even if she had just told Ellie that she wouldn't lie. She might have claimed, even to herself, that they hadn't figured out what they were, and whether they mattered to each other. She might have told herself that it was her decision not to let everybody know about them. It was her decision to keep things on the down low. But as her heart raced, watching Jason, seeing the moment he spotted her and grinned, how he immediately started walking towards her, she knew that that wasn't entirely true. She might not know how he felt, and she might not be ready to know it yet either, but she did know how she felt about him. She might not know what she wanted to do about it, but she knew it. She loved him. This time, her heart didn't just tremble. It quaked.
Chapter 10. Come home with me. What? Jason looked at Olivia, puzzled, and she didn't blame him. They were both naked and in bed, and they were basking in the glow of just being with each other. She hadn't managed to shut her stupid heart, but she had managed to drive herself mad thinking about it. She hadn't told Jason about the second note, either. It had been 4 days since the hurricane officially moved away, and the last 4 days had been hectic. There had been far less damage than she had expected, but it had still been a lot of work. She'd thrown herself into doing it with all of her heart, exhausting herself in the process as if she needed any help getting there. But she was beginning to feel suffocated. She needed to get away. Home. To my family. It's the 4th of July soon. We don't do the whole 4th of July cookout thing. We do a pre-big day cookout. Come home with me for that. It's going to be special. Caleb will be there, and so will Kara, and Hattie and Hazel will be there. Daniel won't be there, which is a pity. But I want to be there, and I'd really like it if you were there as well. That was as neutral as she could make it. She hadn't pressured him. Just to be sure, she might as well tell him so. There's no pressure. Promise. I just want you to be there. If you don't want to come, it's fine. I have to go anyway. Caleb called me the other day and he said that he's going to pop the question. Can you believe it? My best friend will be my sister-in-law, because I know she will say yes. She adores him. They adore each other. I wouldn't have thought that they're a good fit, but they are. They fit so well together. So, you're asking me to meet your family. I told you my family isn't really like that. They're pretty easygoing about this. They won't, grill you or make you feel uncomfortable. It's going to be fine. But I know it's a lot to ask. Anyway, so if you don't want to. He leaned in and kissed her before she could babble on and on. Of course I'll come. I'd love to come. I'd love to meet your family. And even if they want to grill me, I won't mind. I want to grill me if I were them. But not literally, right? You're not asking me to be the one being cooked at the cookout. Olivia chuckled. Of course I'm not. Of course you're not. You will have fun. We'll have to figure our shifts out and probably drive all night. But we can take turns. We'll take my Jeep. I know you love your car, but my Jeep is more practical and I will have lots of gifts to take. And we'll see if we can get the twins to get us tickets for the symphony. I haven't watched them do their thing on stage in such a long time. I'm so excited. It's going to be so much fun. Jason smiled and stroked her cheek with his knuckle. I'm glad you're so happy about this. You've been looking worried and distracted. You've been worrying about something. I missed seeing you happy. I got another note. It was out before she could stop it. She hadn't meant to tell him because she hadn't wanted to worry him, and she wanted time to figure out how to deal with it, whom to go to with it. What? It was when we were in the hospital the day Liza and Nikki had the surgeries. I found it in my coat pocket again. And you didn't tell me. I found it later in the day and then you remember how it got. I meant to tell you after that. But things were busy and nothing more happened and we haven't had time together since then. So, she trailed off, knowing that she was making excuses and hating it. She should have told him. Of course she should have told him. They both knew that. I'm sorry, You told me now. Where is the note? You have to tell somebody else about this, Olivia. We have to make an official complaint. It's necessary now, you understand that, don't you? This isn't a game. Your safety and peace of mind are not trivial. They matter. It was strange and a little unnerving to see that light-hearted mask he always had on slip, and see the guy underneath. She'd seen that before, and she knew she loved all of him. That word again. It kept slipping into her mind when she wasn't guarding herself against it. And sometimes even then, I have it in my bag. I put both of them in sealed plastic bags. I thought maybe there would be something. Jason, the second letter, half of it is written in blood. I'm pretty sure of that. I've seen enough blood to be pretty sure of that. Jason looked shocked, as he very well should have been. Thinking about it still made her feel a little sick. What? Blood? I can't be entirely sure, but I think so, yes. I mean, we've been around blood enough to be pretty sure, I guess. I'm just so creepy. I didn't want it to be true. I wanted it to just go away and stop being my problem. But I want to get off the island for a while, go and see my family for a couple of days, and then come back and see what we can do about this. Do you have any idea who's doing it? Olivia threw her hands up, frustrated. I don't know. After I got the second note, I got so paranoid that I started suspecting everybody. I wondered if Paul was doing it, or Angela or Ellie, or even you, Jason. It was making me go mad. I can't look around and keep wondering if my friends are writing me hateful, threatening letters. Could be anybody. You never know. I didn't know anybody here until I came here, so it's not anything from my past. That much, at least, I can be sure of. But I don't think I've done anything to call attention to myself after coming here. Not like this. It's not your fault. It's not about you doing anything to call attention to yourself, either. You know that, Olivia. This is somebody who is disturbed and seems to have developed a fixation on you. But if it's blood, do you think it could be their own blood? If it is, it would be DNA. We can do something about it, at least. Oh, Oh, but we can't just ask people to give us their DNA like that, and DNA analysis isn't available on demand like that. There are so many evidence kits that sit with the police and aren't processed for years, and why would this take priority when no violent crime has even been committed? Jason smiled, a crooked little half-smile. Because I'm a billionaire, Olivia, and things like this are not delayed for billionaires. Oh, you know something? I'd forgotten. I'd completely forgotten that you're a billionaire. And I would give you my DNA sample, no questions asked. Olivia looked away, a little shy, because she knew exactly why his tone changed when he said it. I don't think it's you. I know it's not. It was just that day. I was feeling a little paranoid and alone. It was just. Don't explain. I know. I don't blame you. I'm not upset. It's fine, Olivia. And even if there's a little, tiny part of you that wants me to do it, I will. Without being offended at all. But we have to do this before we leave. We have to go to the sheriff's office, report this, and then we have to get the notes to a lab I know so we can get it analyzed. All right. Olivia nodded. It was odd not to be in control of something about her, but it was a relief, too, to be able to depend on somebody and know he wouldn't let her down. It was something she wouldn't mind getting used to. Okay, we'll do that. Well then, why don't we go out, grab some dinner, and we'll stop by the sheriff's and get this done before I take you home? Olivia nodded. That sounded good. I see, Dr. Leggett. Well, I'm glad you came to us, but you're right that we don't really have the kind of equipment that you'd need to do the kind of analysis you're hoping for. We usually send a deputy out onto the mainland to do that. Jason nodded at the sheriff. Sheriff Davidson was being as helpful as he could be, but Olivia had known that there wasn't much he could do. I realized that. I was wondering if we could get your authorization to use a private lab on part of the note. If you could keep the main portion as evidence and we could use a part of it to keep the chain of possession from getting messy, then you could follow up how you normally would with the note and we would at least have something to work with. Unofficially. That's not strictly legal and allowed, drive Southworth, but under the circumstances. We are a bit swamped with the hurricane. I realized that. If you could temporarily deputize me, it wouldn't be a problem, would it? Sheriff Davidson grinned. You have an interesting mind, son. You wouldn't happen to want a career in the law? Would you? Jason grinned. That charming grin that nobody could resist. Not even the crusty old sheriff. If I ever do, I'm glad you'd be willing to put in a good word for me. Thanks, Sheriff. I'll be sure to let you know whatever I find out. Now don't you go acting outside the law. Of course not, Sheriff. I know better than that. And take care of the young lady doctor here. We're going to see her family for a couple of days. Take her away from this unpleasantness. That's a good idea, son. A good idea. They chatted a while longer, Olivia completely excluded in a way that would have irritated her under any other circumstances, but she didn't mind because this was also very unpleasant. She entertained herself thinking of how Ellie would react in a situation like that. Well, she couldn't imagine Ellie being ignored like that, either. Take care then, Dr. Leggett. See you. Stay safe. Olivia smiled, wished him a good evening, and left with Jason. So that's how it feels to be a helpless damsel in distress. Hey, I'll officially be a deputy when we go to NYC Day after tomorrow. We got what we needed. Now, come on. They walked together, each lost in their own thoughts. Olivia, you're not going to like this. What? I don't want you to be alone. What? I know you love walking along the cliffs, and I know you like going to the beach, and I know we all have different schedules. But when you're on the island, I don't want you to be alone. Oh, I want you to stay with somebody you trust. Olivia sighed. I thought of that too, but I don't know who that is. I don't know who I trust, other than you. So what can I do? What if I try to do a buddy system and ended up being paired with the letter writer? Jason frowned. All right then. I will stay with you at all times. What? You won't be alone then. I'll stay with you. You can move in with me. What? It's practical, insisted Jason. No, it's not. Don't be ridiculous. In fact, the note writer escalates after we get close. When we didn't have time to spend with each other for a while, there was nothing. We slept together in the break room, and then I got the Mad Blood letter. It might be safer if I stay away from you. Absolutely not. Exactly. I'm not going to live my life trying to appease a mad blood note writer. So let's not go there. Now, I drove here, so I've got to get back. Ellie wants to get a few repairs done tonight, and I should be there. It's a two-person job, and even if it wasn't, I can't let her do it herself. Jason grumbled, but he didn't object, not too much. He waited till Ellie was in the Jeep and driving away before he went inside, though. It wasn't a long drive. Just long enough to bask in the glow of the happiness being with him brought her. Not long enough to let her doubts and insecurities make a mess of things. There was something blocking the road. It looked like a branch of some sort. That was odd. Everything had been cleared away from the roads already. The road had definitely been clear when she drove there. Still, it didn't look too big. She could drag it to the side enough to be able to drive through. Olivia got out, a little annoyed, walked to the branch, grabbed it, and started tugging. It was heavy, but not too heavy. She huffed and puffed a bit, but she managed to drag it far enough to get it out of the way. Oh, drat! She bent down to pick up the notepad that had fallen from her pocket during her exertions, and she felt rather than heard a twang, and then she heard something hit the wood. Olivia straightened quickly and saw an arrow, an actual arrow, stuck to the branch, just a few inches away from where she had been before she'd bent down. Her heart nearly stopped. She looked around, feeling like a deer caught in headlights. What was she supposed to do? Duck? Take cover? Go looking for whoever it was? She darted to the Jeep and crouched, trying to look around. Her phone was in the Jeep. She couldn't call anybody. There would be no help. She looked around carefully. There was nobody. There was no movement. She couldn't just sit there forever. Quickly, she reached behind, opened the door, her heart thumping so loudly, and darted inside the Jeep. She stayed low, grabbed her phone, and called Jason. He didn't make her wait. He was there in 2 minutes with a flashlight so powerful that it could have been used for a stage production of a lighthouse drama. Hey, it's all right. I'm here. There's nobody around. I pointed this everywhere. Impossible to hide from this. There are no shadows to hide in with this. He climbed in, pulled her into his arms. Why is it always dark in the woods? It's not night. We'll write a stern letter to the editor complaining about it. Can you drive? I'll drive you home and come back and get the car if you can't. I can drive. I can. Just hold me for a minute. I'll hold you for as long as you need. Promise, Jason. And it was a few minutes before she stopped trembling. Will you be all right while I go and get that arrow? Bolt, whatever it is. She couldn't stop the shudder, but she nodded. He got a clean towel and went out. She couldn't bear to watch. He got the arrow and came back with it wrapped in the towel so that she didn't have to see it again. She was glad about that. Do you think they were trying to kill me and missed? Or was it some kind of a warning? Tell me what happened. She took a deep breath and steeled herself to think about it. That branch, it wasn't there when we came. But now it was. I thought it was odd. But there have been branches in places, and it could have been before something fell off during cleanup. Or maybe it hadn't broken completely during the hurricane and they missed it while trimming the trees. Anyway, it didn't look that heavy. So I got out and dragged it out of the way. I dropped my notepad and bent down to get it, and that's when I heard it. I got up, saw it, and I just froze for a second. It felt like forever, but it was probably just a couple of seconds. If they'd really wanted to hit me, I'm sure they could have shot then. But they didn't. I ran to the Jeep and crouched there, and finally I managed to get the nerve to reach for the handle and open it and get inside. My phone was inside. And then I called you. She managed to say that, succinctly and clearly, and then she burst into tears. Just the shock, Olivia. It's all right. Come here, I've got you. It's all right, you're all right. I promise you're all right. It will be fine. We'll get to the bottom of this. I promise we'll get to the bottom of this. And he meant it. The evening had been a nightmare. He'd left the car parked on the side of the road. He couldn't have cared less about it. And driven Olivia to the sheriff's office. She was brave. The bravest woman he'd ever known. She'd cried in his arms for a few minutes and then valiantly gotten herself under control and reported what had happened to the sheriff in her own words. He had taken photos of the scene before taking the arrow out. He gave that to the sheriff as well. It was wooden and homemade from the looks of it. It was a solid lead at any rate. He would find whoever had done that. He would find whoever had terrorized her. Whoever had made the woman he loved, the woman who would be his, cry like that in his arms. He would never let her be hurt like that again. Never. Once he made up his mind to do something, Jason got to it quickly. It had been like that when he had decided that he would be a doctor. He had changed his coursework to make him pre-med very quickly, and his parents hadn't had much to say about it. But that didn't mean that he wasn't good at other things. He was the heir to a tech empire, after all, and he had almost been ready to take over when the time came. He might no longer plan to do that, but those skills hadn't left him. For instance, he was very good at hacking. Most systems and servers didn't have the kind of security that could stop him. Hospitals might have better security than home computers, but knowing the hospital where he worked, he didn't think that was that likely. He knew how to get in and he knew how to get what he found. It wasn't as if Jason didn't have ethics. He had plenty of ethics and morals. He was just also quite pragmatic. He knew when something had to be done. Right at that moment, Olivia was depending on him. So he would do whatever he could. He could narrow it down. It was somebody on the island. It was somebody who had been in the hospital that day. And it was somebody who had access to Olivia, who was close enough to watch her, because he no longer thought that the night she had been spooked in the woods had been her imagination. Somebody had set their eyes on her as soon as she'd come to the island, just as he had. But unlike him, they wished her harm. He would not allow that. So he got to work to protect the woman he loved. Did they think that that had been an attempt on Olivia's life? People could be so stupid, even Olivia. No, not Olivia. Olivia was lovely. She had just been scared. That was a pity. Regret. Was that what this feeling was? It was rather novel. Regret, because Olivia had looked so scared. Her eyes had been so wide. She had looked so small. Olivia had been losing weight. Yes, that was definitely regret. Maybe shooting that arrow so close to Olivia had been a mistake. The intention had never been to make her afraid for her life. Just to make her step back and reassess her priorities and her friendships a little bit more. Everybody made mistakes. That was fine. But Jason had ruined it. He had been the one she'd called. He'd come to the rescue. That had not been the plan. A crash and a bowl shattered against the wall. That had not been the plan. If you want more BWWM romances like this, please, my love, be sure to subscribe to the Romancely YouTube channel. I look forward to spending more time with you. Subscribe and let's make it happen.
Chapter 11. Thanks for agreeing to the alarm, Ellie. Please, promise me that you'll keep it on when you're home. I'd still prefer it if you'd stay with somebody. Olivia had told Ellie about what had happened. At that point, it had become necessary. If Olivia was in danger, then so was whoever who lived with her. But Ellie had stood firm on that. She'd get the alarm put on, and she and Jason had had a fine time picking one, and then Jason had had it delivered and installed within the hour, which had also delighted Ellie, but she would not be chased from home. She had, however, agreed with Jason that Olivia could do with a couple of days away. I'll be fine, Olivia. Don't worry about me. I'll check in with you every day. I promise. Yes, every 6 hours. I'll be fine. You have my schedule, I'll be at the hospital most of the time anyway. Don't worry so much. Olivia nodded, but she couldn't help but worry. If you say so. At least I know you'll be safe. I know. Jason is safe. Ellie smiled. You really like him, don't you? He's been there for me through everything. Is that all? I've seen the way you look at each other. Olivia couldn't lie to Ellie, not now. I love him. But I haven't told him. I don't know if I can tell him. My past is not very encouraging. Things really went downhill with my ex. I know, but Jason isn't Aaron, and he's not doing anything Aaron would. Olivia smiled despite herself, despite everything. That's true. Of course it's true. Let yourself feel what you have for him, Olivia. You deserve to be happy. It was with those words ringing in her ears that she waved goodbye to Ellie and set off with Jason. He didn't say anything about the notes or the stalker or the arrow or anything, and Olivia was glad. She needed a break from all of it. She didn't want to think about anything. Instead, they played songs on the radio from each decade and tried to sing along, making up lyrics when they didn't know them. An hour in, she was feeling better, so much better. It was as if getting closer to her family was giving her all the positive energy she needed. They each took turns driving, because it was a 5-hour drive even with everything going perfect. But it was an adventure, going with Jason. She was never bored. She didn't think she could ever be bored with him, not when he reached out and took her hand casually, as if her hand belonged in his. Not when he leaned towards her and kissed her as they waited for lights to change. When they stopped for gas, the attendant at the gas station thought they were a married couple. She found that she didn't mind that. She even liked it. She gave him a rundown of her family to prepare him, but found that he had already prepped himself. Father, John Leggett, cardiologist and adjunct professor at Duke University. Mother, Abby Leggett, speech pathologist at Duke. Sisters Hazel and Hattie, both in the symphony orchestra, first chairs, cello and violin. Brother, Caleb, lawyer who specializes in civil rights, about to be engaged to Cara Dunn, best friend. Daniel, oldest brother, off saving the world by trying to keep the ice caps from melting, he recited. Olivia chuckled. That's about right. And we have tickets to see the twins, so that will be fun, too. We'll drive back after that. I need to take off for an hour to meet a friend when I'm in the city, but other than that, I'm all yours. Olivia was a little hurt that he didn't ask her to go along to meet his friend, but she didn't make a big deal out of it. It didn't matter. Olivia nearly leapt out of the car when it was still moving when they got home. She had missed it. She had missed the sprawling house in the suburbs, with terraces for every bedroom on the upper floors, with the deck that wrapped around the house along the lower floor. She had missed the sounds of dogs barking and running around. She had missed the smug cat who seemed to get fatter every day no matter what kind of diet she was on. She had missed her home and she had missed her family, even if she hadn't lived at home with family for about 7 years now. She squealed when she ran inside and was wrapped in warm hugs. She was hugged, and kissed, and admired, and scolded until it was hard to keep the tears inside, but she managed. Mama. Mama, the house looks wonderful. Nobody makes a home like you. We missed you, Olivia. And here's your young man. Jason Southworth, right? I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that we looked you up, but we found nothing serious enough to put you on the grill instead of the food. You make my daughter happy and you will be family for us. Jason grinned, obviously a little overwhelmed, which took a lot. Olivia had to chuckle. There was a lot of family there. There was another squeal, and Olivia found her arms full with her best friend, Cara. V. You're here, finally. I have so much to tell you. Oh, you look wonderful, and you're Jason, you look wonderful, too, but if you hurt our girl, I will stab you in the eye. Olivia laughed. I warned you, she mumbled to Jason. Not enough. I don't think bringing 2 bottles of wine and a bottle of scotch is going to get me on the right side of your family. And a box of sweets, so we're good. Hattie, Hazel, don't you dare try to squeeze my arms. I have not been doing my handstands, my arms are not stronger than your fingers right now. Where's Caleb? Where's Daddy? They'll be, there they are. There were more hugs, more pointed jabs at Jason, but he was welcomed into the warmth that was her family, too. She was glad to see him beginning to loosen up a bit. She was glad to see him begin to let go and let himself laugh. She'd known that he and Caleb would get along great, and she proved to be right. Olivia went out to the backyard to greet the dogs, Rough and Tumble, and they lived up to their names in raucousness, and she found the fat old cat, Jot, in a corner, with a block of cheese he had obviously finessed somehow. "You will never lose weight at this rate, Jot. You need to get a little healthier. Do a few more push-ups, if nothing else. You should make sure you have more muscle than that." He gave her a disdainful look and went back to his cheese, but she figured he appreciated the petting anyway. Olivia wandered up to her childhood room and sighed a little. It still had her personality in it, even if her mother had redecorated. It was still her room. It still had the curtains she had painstakingly sewn in the needlework class she had hated in school. It had the side table and bookshelves she had built in the carpentry class she had loved. There was so much conversation, and so much laughter, and so much food. After the first half an hour, it seemed as if Jason had forever been a part of them, too. "V, I need to tell you something." "What? Is something wrong?" Kara shook her head. No, it's something that Caleb and I are going to announce soon. But I wanted to tell you first. Other than Caleb and the doctor, nobody else knows. I'm pregnant." It took Olivia a moment to wrap her head around it. Pregnant, her best friend and her brother were going to have a baby. Oh my God. Oh, that's such wonderful news. I'm so happy. I'm going to be an aunt. I'm going to be the bestest, funnest aunt ever, and I am going to love your baby so much, and do everything I can to keep it safe. Everything. Forever, Kara. I know, whispered her friend, and she hugged Olivia again, tight. And I think Caleb is going to propose to me in front of everybody, which he knows I'll hate, so I guess we're just meant for each other, don't you? Olivia chuckled a little weepy. Of course you are. You are meant for each other. You love each other so much, it just shines. And now I see why you glow, and why you haven't had a sip of wine all day. You're going to be the best parents. You will be such a wonderful mother. Everything will be fine. I know. I trust that. V, you really love Jason, don't you? When you look at him, you look how I feel when I look at Caleb. Olivia sighed a little. I don't think I want to think about that right now. It's still new and well, we haven't said the words, and I don't know how he feels, so we're just taking things slow right now. Kara looked around pointedly, at Jason who was laughing with her brother, her sisters, and her father. Sure, that's what this is. Taking things slow. Olivia grinned. In our own special way. I can't wait for the announcement. I will cry buckets. And buckets. I'm sure you will, and so will Abby, and Hazel, and Hattie will pretend not to be crying, and John will look strong but still cry, and Caleb will try to comfort everybody and cry, and Jason will probably run as far away as he can, teased Kara. Hey, this is one way to find out if he's actually a keeper. I guess that's one way to look at it. Now, well, looks like Caleb has fortified himself and is ready for the announcement. It unfolded just as predicted, except that Jason joined in the tears, too. Why are you crying? Demanded Olivia. Because it's all so much and it's beautiful, declared Jason, and Olivia hugged him and kissed him, knowing that she would never love another man this much. He was the love of her life. And there couldn't have been a better moment to realize it than when she was surrounded by people who loved her, people she loved. The only thing wrong with the day was that it flew by. It took Jason a while to make excuses and get away. He could see now how Olivia was as lovely as she was. Her family was wonderful. They had seen that she had accepted him, so he had been accepted, with the only condition being that he never make her unhappy. There hadn't even been any demands that she make him happy. The only condition had been that he could not make her unhappy. When he'd said that he needed to meet a friend, they had all tried to get him to stay and invite his friend over, even offering an extra ticket to the concert for the friend, but he had to leave, just for an hour. Now he waited at the rather seedy bar outside town, waiting for him. "Well, Jason, you rich bastard. You look the same. Like you wouldn't last 2 minutes in an alley." "Thanks, Louis. I feel the same. How's Lydia?" "Great, pregnant with our third. You should settle down, Jason. Find the right woman, start a family, have a couple of kids. Stop breaking laws." "Am I breaking any? I didn't notice." "Now, come on, this little side business of yours will keep your kids in football and ballet shoes for years, won't it? Do you have what I asked for?" "Some. Paul Martinez, half black, half Latino, all gay. Has a couple of dings, but mostly for getting picked up during protests for gay rights. Nothing, let's say, violent or aggressive. Volunteered his time and skills at a couple of shelters for LGBT youth. Nothing to suggest that he's dangerous to anybody except to social injustice." Jason grinned. Louis was a cop who didn't mind doing background runs for the right price, and had his own code of honor. He might bend the rules, but he wouldn't break the spirit of the law. He would not take jobs like this from people he didn't trust. But for people he did trust, like Jason, because they went back a long way, he would do this, for a prize. Sounds like he'd be low on the list. "I'd say so." Ellie McIntosh, Southern Belle. She left home and family and decided to be a biker chick who was also a doctor. She has a record, a drunk and disorderly, but that was at a family function. Her own family pressed charges against her. Louis looked like he could spit. He didn't approve of family who didn't have each other's backs. "Anything else interesting?" "No, nothing. Clean as far as I could find. Not a person of interest in anything, open or closed. Angela Cullen, now there's something else." "What?" "Well, she was in the system for a while, got knocked around a bit. Brilliant student, got scholarships and got out of Dodge, but there's a pattern of trouble following her. She has a juvie record, but that one is sealed, nothing I can do about that. You can try and hack into that, but I don't think it'll get you much more than what I'm telling you." Jason made a non-committal sound. He would decide that. What is this pattern of trouble? Something would happen. Something would get stolen, somebody would get blamed, and somebody would get arrested for it. In every school, every foster home and every college or dorm she was at, that happened. Now, this girl is smart enough not to get caught, usually, but the only time she did get caught seems to be when she lost her head for some guy. He changed his mind and didn't press charges, so it wasn't a permanent mark on her record. But apparently she almost drove his girlfriend crazy. How? Used her like a behavioral psychology experiment, from what I understood. This isn't in her file, I found out because I know somebody who knows somebody else, and something stuck out. By the time she was caught, and that was an accident, she had nearly driven the poor girl mad. Are you sure we're talking about the same Angela Cullen? Small, blonde, looks like a doll? Apparently the blonde is a dye job. Her hair used to be red. But here, is this her? Jason took the phone Louis offered, took a good look at the photo on it, and he nodded. That's her. Then that's the scoop. Jason nodded, and they chatted for a while, but by the time he got back to Olivia, he was sure. He didn't know why Angela was doing what she was doing. But he finally knew who they had to watch out for, and that was a relief. Jason had never spent the night with a woman when her parents were under the same roof. He felt like a prude when her family didn't turn a hair, but he felt odd even when Olivia cuddled up to him in the wide bed, pressing her voluptuous, enticing body against his.
Oh no, it's about to get hot.
But we can't put this on YouTube as they don't allow it.
I'm sorry.
But check the description of this video to join the Romance Audiobook Insiders and get details on how you can get the steamy scenes in future.
Okay, back to the story.
He joined her, and was joined with her, as he held her and gave her more than he took, and took what he needed.
Chapter 12. Wasn't it lovely? Aren't they brilliant? Jason agreed. The twins were definitely brilliant. But he hadn't been able to tear his eyes away from Olivia. They said their goodbyes regretfully, but they couldn't take any more time off. This had been difficult enough. Setting off, he could feel the sadness in Olivia, and he wanted to lift that off her. What can I do? Olivia smiled. It's just how I always feel when I leave them behind. I miss them so much. I wish Daniel could come home, too, but it will be a couple more months. You will like him. He's not as friendly as Caleb is, but he's a lot of fun, too. I'm sure he is. I'd love to meet him. Olivia, you know that I'm not asking you to meet my family because it's not really. It's not the same. I don't share this with my family. It's not because I'm not letting you in. Olivia smiled. I guess. Thanks for telling me, though. I think I might have needed to hear that. Olivia, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but I love you. I'm just putting it out there because it's true. I love you. Olivia looked at him, wondering how he could have just said that while driving, his eyes on the road. No flowers, no music, no chocolate. No, only 2 days full of love and laughter with her family. And when she missed them so much that it felt like her heart was being ripped out of her chest. He told her that he loved her, that he was her family too. It was the most romantic thing ever. I love you too. I really do, Jason. I said there was no pressure. I know. I wasn't saying it because I didn't want to pressure you, or make you run. I would never run away from you. Run away with you now, that might be something I'm interested in. Why would I run away from you when I want to be with you? Olivia laughed when he took her hand, kissed it, and his eyes went back on the road. Good point. She managed to settle herself so that she could lean on his shoulder. Even if she knew that she couldn't stay in that position for too long, it would ruin her back. It was the most intimate, most secure moment she had had with anybody other than her family. Because now Jason was family too. The kind of family you chose. Jason knew that he should tell Olivia what he had found out, of course. But she had been so happy at home with her family, and then they'd had all those nice moments on the drive back. And she had been so distracted once they got back. And, all right, so they were all excuses. He was making excuses because he hadn't wanted to tell her. She had stopped being on edge. She had stopped being so jumpy. He couldn't bear to take all of that away and tell her that he was pretty sure that one of her friends was obsessed with her, and if not actively trying to kill her, then at least a very real danger to her. He couldn't bring himself to do it. Nothing could happen when she was at the hospital, of course. He had a later shift, but by the time she got home, Ellie should already be there, so she wouldn't be alone. Everything would be fine. So when they met in the cafeteria to eat and joined the rest of the group, he didn't think that anything was wrong. He didn't expect anything to be wrong at all. So when she took his hand, squeezed it, smiled at him, and took a deep breath, he had no idea what was coming. Guys, I have something to tell you. Jason looked at her, surprised, as he might well have been. They hadn't discussed this, but it made no sense not to tell their friends any longer. They had wanted to wait until they were sure. Well, they were about as sure could get without a marriage and a mortgage, so it was time. It was time to tell them, it was time to end the secrets. A new beginning. There had been no more nasty notes and no more incidents. She had managed to convince herself that it hadn't been any of her close friends. Couldn't have been. It was somebody else. She was sure of it. So she would tell her friends about her happiness. They all looked at her. Jason and I are dating. There wasn't as much surprise as she'd thought there would be. Damn girl, you grabbed the finest man here, and here I was hoping he'd swing my way. Oh well, can't say I'm surprised, said Paul. Olivia grinned, masking her surprise. So, her whole theory that Paul was getting obsessed with her had been completely wrong. Thank heavens she hadn't said it out loud. It would have been the most embarrassing thing ever, at least in the top 10. Imagine being self-involved and paranoid enough to think that your gay friend was crushing on you. Oh, what a good thing she hadn't opened her big mouth and said anything of the sort. Ellie, of course, knew. Olivia turned to Angela, and for just a split second, she thought she'd seen anger and virulent hatred on her face. But it was gone so quickly that she managed to convince herself that she had imagined that. Of course, she'd imagined that. She'd just blinked wrong. Or something. I'm the only one who's surprised? Well, that's wonderful. When did you ask her out, Jason? You don't think that she could have asked me out? Olivia chuckled. It's been a few weeks, Angela. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but if it turned out that we were terrible together and broke up, and you guys felt obliged to take sides because we hated each other, this was a good way to make sure that things stayed the same with us even if we did end up breaking up. Angela did have a funny look on her face. A few weeks? So all those times you said you were too busy for me, you were dating him? You were on dates with him? Olivia shifted uncomfortably. This was getting more awkward than she had anticipated. It's not. I know I shouldn't make excuses. I'm sorry, Angela. I didn't mean to lie, but I guess I did. I'm really sorry. I'll make it up to you. You lied to me. You kept secrets, and that, I understand that. But you lied to me. Olivia almost expected Angela to storm off, but she didn't. She just sat there, withdrawing into herself, not responding to anybody in more than monosyllables. It's okay, she'll come around. Just give her time, said Ellie. But Olivia wasn't sure she believed that. She had really hurt Angela. She had really messed up. But no apologies worked. When she was paged and had to leave, she got up and walked away knowing that in trying not to cause damage, she had maybe caused worse damage than she would have otherwise. She didn't know how she could fix this, but she had to try. She knew she did. Words roared through Angela's head. Bitch, slut, lying whore. You think you can have happiness without me? You think you can be with him and leave him behind? I'll show you. I'll show you. She kept them all inside, of course, and she kept her mask on. She was used to keeping her mask on. She would keep it on. It wouldn't slip. But her control, her calculating control, that was beginning to slip, and it made her feel like she was floundering. She had always been in control. Like that time she'd pretended to get drunk to get Olivia to take her home, and then followed her back. She'd always been in control of her feelings, of her actions, of her choices. She was quite aware that many people didn't approve of any of those things, but she didn't care about others' approval. She hurt people who hurt her. She did it because otherwise they would keep hurting her. Her definition of what hurting her meant had changed over the years to mean not giving her what she wanted. But it was the same thing, really, under all the layers. By the time she was done with her lunch, Angela knew, of course, that Olivia had to pay. She would make her pay. Jason tried to get out of work, he did, but Olivia had been paged and into surgery, and then he was paged for an emergency. He tried to reach her on her phone, but he remembered it had been about to die on the way back, and what little battery it had left must have died when she was in surgery. By the time he managed to get out of his own emergency case and look for her, she was gone, and her phone was still off. He called Ellie. You're home, aren't you? Of course I am. What's wrong? Will you let me know when Olivia gets there? I think she's in. Look, Ellie, I can't really explain, but I think it's Angela doing all those things. It's not just think. I'm pretty sure it's Angela. I got a cop friend to do a background check on everybody. I know, I'm sorry, but there are a few very funny things in Angela's background, and please just make sure she's safe. She made her announcement at lunch, and I haven't been able to get to her after that. I'll make sure she's fine. I'll go and check all our windows and our doors and the security system. Are you sure Angela isn't at the hospital? I paged her before I called you, and she hasn't responded. I paged her over the system, and she hasn't come. I'm worried. Look, just let me know when she gets home and have the sheriff on speed dial. Done, said Ellie and cut the call. Jason was about to leave, shift or not, when a kid with a bleeding face came in for treatment. 2 minutes. 2 minutes and he would leave. Nothing would happen to Olivia. Nothing would happen to her. He wouldn't let anything happen to her. Olivia walked home because she'd had enough of being in vehicles for a while, even her lovely Jeep. Maybe she'd get back to those lessons on Harley and rent a bike. That would be fun. She got home and was surprised to find that it did feel like home. Usually, after spending a couple of days with her family, wherever she was started to feel like a cheap substitute for home. Not this time. This time it felt real. She let herself in, and was so happy and distracted that she didn't set the alarm. Besides, it was daylight. It wasn't even 4 in the afternoon. She pulled the door closed. Ellie? There was nothing. She was probably out for a walk or something. Cat, she mused. They should get a cat. Then neither of them would ever come home to an empty home. Olivia was in her room and changing when she smelled it. Smoke? Ellie? Did you leave something on the stove? She was about to go to the kitchen when somebody stepped into her bedroom, closed the door, walked to her curtains, and set them on fire. Angela? Hello, Olivia. I didn't mean to hurt you that time. I just wanted to send you a warning to stay away from Jason. But this time, I'm afraid you are going to die. I don't want to die, but I don't mind if I die, too. I'm not going to, though. I'm going to lock you in your bedroom and leave, and by the time they find you, you'll be dead. Smoke inhalation, you know? Angela, what the hell are you doing? You're meant to be mine, Livy. We're bonded. How could you not realize? You cheated on me, and you kept secrets, and you made a fool out of me. So now he can't have you, and you must die. You understand? No, I don't understand. You never told me how you felt. How could I know if you didn't tell me? Olivia coughed. She was beginning to go dizzy. Smoke inhalation, she realized, it worked fast. You should have known, shouted Angela, the mask slipping. You should have known, she said again in the old, pleasant voice. The smoke was getting bad. The curtains were definitely on fire. She tried to inch towards the door, but Angela swung her arm back, and it came back holding a bow and arrow. She moved to stand between Olivia and the door with her back to the door. I'm good at this. I'm sure you noticed. If you move, I will shoot you. I don't want to do that, though, so you really shouldn't move. How about that? Angela, we'll talk this out. We'll figure it out, I promise. We'll work things out. Maybe Jason isn't the one for me. It's all very soon. Angela, please. She laughed, as if they were having afternoon tea and sandwiches and Olivia had said something particularly amusing. I'm a psychiatrist, Livy. Or almost. I know when you're lying to me to save your skin. But nothing can save you now. Nothing and nobody. What did you do to Ellie? Oh, nothing. I just managed to grab your phone from your bag and texted her that you'd had a flat half a mile down the road. That's all. And your precious Jason is not going to come riding to the rescue, either. He's stitching up some brat's forehead. So it is just you and me, Livy, and now it's just you. Take the rest of your life to think about all the choices you've made that's led you here, forcing me to do this to you. You shouldn't betray the person who loves you most of all, Livy. At least you can learn that lesson before you die. Olivia could hardly breathe. Her coughing was getting worse. Her throat was on fire, and so were her lungs. She was so close to the fire. It was spreading. She could leap for Angela. She could leap for her, tackle her, and get away. She might get hurt, but it was better than certain death. Olivia was taking a deep breath, ready to do it, when the door opened, very slowly. She didn't let her eyes flicker. She gave no indication of seeing anything. Ellie, with a towel over her face and holding a frying pan. It was their cast iron skillet. I can learn the lesson, but you can still have me, Angela. What's the point of killing me when you can have me? I should have known that you wanted me. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm so sorry, she babbled between gasping breaths and coughing fits. You're sorry. For a split second, she thought she'd seen something in Angela's face. Something sad and forlorn. Ellie swung the frying pan, hard, and Angela crumpled in a heap. Olivia sank to her knees, the feeling faint, the world going gray. She didn't know if it was a faint or the smoke. Come on, Livy, we have to get you out of there. Shit, we can't leave her in there either. Shit. The door burst open all the way, and Jason ran in. I've got her. I've got Livy. Grab Angela. Ellie nodded and pulled Angela out the door, hefting her over her shoulders like a sack of psychopathic potatoes. Jason scooped Olivia up in her arms and stumbled out after Ellie. I called 911. They'll be here soon. She set fire to curtains. I put out the one in the living room before I went up. But damn, she's crazy. Ellie dumped Angela on the grass and started giving her first aid. Jason set Olivia down. Olivia. Hey, open your eyes. She did, to his relief. Angela. Ellie. All fine. Everybody's fine. Paramedics are here. Come on, you're getting checked out, and then you're coming home with me. Olivia didn't argue. She didn't have anything to say anyway. Her home, the one she'd been so happy to think of as home, was going up in smoke. Paul looked around his kitchen table and sighed a little. I still don't understand why Angela would do something like that. It makes no sense. I know, and how could none of us have known? It's over. Angela will get the care she needs, said Ellie. Because Olivia here went and pleaded Angela's case. Olivia shrugged. It had been a month since then, and sometimes it felt as if they were all still in shock. It was still hard to believe. But now that she knew what Angela's background was, she could have compassion, even if she couldn't empathize. There's no point getting her locked up. It makes more sense to get her help. Is it any wonder I love her? I love her, declared Jason, and pulled her closer to him. Disgusting, aren't they? We should stop cooking for them if they don't stop being so disgusting around us, Paul. We cook far too much for just the two of us, Ellie. We have to feed them, complained Paul, and Olivia grinned. It made sense that Ellie had moved in with Paul while the damage was being taken care of, but she did miss having Ellie around all the time. But waking up with Jason every morning had its perks, too, and she enjoyed every minute of them. She sat there with her friends and the love of her life, and she realized that she was finding contentment again. She wasn't jumping at shadows so much. She didn't have panic attacks so often. She wasn't so suspicious of people. Family, she realized again. She had more family now. That's what Angela had needed, maybe. Family. You are the most beautiful maid of honor, declared Jason. Olivia chuckled. You have to say that. Now please, behave. Do not raise hell with Daniel. How wrong I was about the two of you perhaps not getting along as well as you and Caleb do. How wrong I was. But this is Kara's big day, and you will all behave. They nodded. It's my big day too, said Caleb a little plaintively, and Olivia grinned. Sure, big brother. She walked down the aisle, and she met Jason's eyes as she passed him. Kara walked down the aisle on her father's arm, and she was the most beautiful bride Olivia had ever seen. She sighed, cried a little as her best friend and her brother made their vows to each other. She laughed, applauded, and whistled when they kissed, far more enthusiastically than you were supposed to in a church. A year, she realized. It had been a year since that halcyon day when Caleb had proposed to Kara, and Kara had said, "Of course, you silly ass." It was all a blur of joy as Kara and Caleb ran down the aisle. She wasn't even trying to catch the bouquet when it was tossed, though. She wasn't paying attention at all, and it hit her in the head, making her wince. She grabbed it and glared at it. Then came the garter toss. There was a lot of hooting and howling as Jason caught it. He had that gleam in his eyes when he came to her. Oh no, you don't. You absolutely do not, Jason. You do not. It's tradition, Olivia. You wouldn't want to go against centuries of tradition. You wouldn't want my foot going up your ass, hissed Olivia. Aren't you a feisty one? Well, how about this instead? He grabbed her arm and pulled her away, to more appreciative whistles and hoots. Olivia glared at him, hands on her hips, when he finally let go after they rounded a corner and were out of sight. Jason, what the hell do you think you're? Her words were cut off when he dropped to one knee. I didn't want to take over their big day with a proposal, so I figured I should get you alone. Besides, it's much less embarrassing this way if you say no. Jason, you're the light of my life, Olivia. Marry me. She looked at him, and her heart nearly burst with joy. Yes, she told him. And when he put the ring on her finger and pulled her into his arms, she held him close, kissed him, and let herself feel it. Safe, loved, forever. The end. If you want more BWWM romances like this, please, my love, be sure to subscribe to the Romancely YouTube channel. I look forward to spending more time with you. Subscribe and let's make it happen.